Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you? I'm not ready yet, so hang tight.
And tonight on the ABC News, OJ Simpson kills one more person. Oh my god, I can't believe it. OJ kills another person? I didn't know Minute Maid orange juice could kill people. I guess what happened here was that someone poisoned the OJ and, killed somebody. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on ABC, the horrible news in the whole world. Thank you. Well, I hope you liked how I did my commercials. I'm gonna be a star. I've always been a star. I just have to go to Hollywood, and then I'll just, everybody would be like going, "Oh, I want your autograph. Oh, I want your autograph." But anyways, see you later. Adios. Ciao.
Well, just in case you're wondering, we're still not completely ready, but hey, whatever. It's me and Chandler. We're doing this right. We're doing this right now. How you doing, Chandler?
I did not sleep.
Great. So she's gonna be cranky like she was last week and yell.
I'm not gonna be cranky. Wait, did I yell? I don't remember yelling.
You did.
You're like, yelling.
Fuck Johnnie Cochran and his stupid intercourse. Johnnie Cochran and his stupid arguments. Man, I don't believe. You were cranky last week.
Oh, I was cranky. No, now I remember that.
You're cranky. Well, I'm cranky because I'm an idiot, and I did not pull a timestamp for last week, like when we stopped. So I literally have no idea where we are. I'm kind of sort of checking here. I don't know.
I'm kind of getting that.
It's bad. I made a bad decision in my life. All I know is this is the worst. I'm literally just not ready at all because I have no idea what's happening. So anywho, shit. I literally have no idea what to do.
I kept trying to think of funny, subtitles down here. And I was gayer when tired and drunk and also tired. I don't know. I kept all of the things I kept coming up with were really gay, and then I realized I must be gay when I'm drunk and when I'm tired.
Well, you're gay-ish.
I'm 50-50, half and half.
Yeah, you're ish. It's like a Ben and Jerry's ice cream. It's kind of mixed.
More in theory than in practice. I don't know.
Oh no, I honest to God have no idea how far we are into this video. Because at the end, I always bring it up so I can see the timestamp, but I didn't. And I'm just at an absolute loss here as to where we are. And there's just no way of knowing, because on YouTube, you can click on the bar and you can scroll across and see the frames. You can't do that on their web page. On the Court TV webpage. So what I'm thinking,
would it be bad if I put acquit these titties? Probably not good.
Not guilty. not guilty at all. You may walk free.
Oh my God. Oh boy.
If the brassiere does not fit, you must acquit. You are absolved of all crimes.
See, you're much quicker than I am.
Oh, not when I'm just I honest to God have no idea where we are. So I'm just
slower when gay. I mean tired.
Yeah.
Gay?
So I am literally we could have skipped an hour. We could be an hour behind where we were at the end of last stream. I have no idea, so I'm just picking a place and going with it.
We were at that part where that one guy was saying that one thing.
Well, we just finished like showing pictures of OJ's underwear-clad junk, but like on the court TV videos, you can't like scroll through and see screen captures as you scroll through like you can with YouTube. And I don't have a timestamp.
I can't remember when I left. Did I leave at the end? I'm trying to remember when it
Yes,
ended.
you did.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
So anywho, I'll set up a poll once this starts. If anybody's joining us here wondering what the hell's going on, it's just my usual dumbassedness that's this goddess here. So
this
Thursday
goddess here?
Yeah.
Me? Sorry, I'm kidding. I don't think of myself as a goddess. I'm just a regular one.
You should. You should.
I really shouldn't. When women call themselves goddesses, it like gives me the ick in a major way. It's like,
goddess is okay. It's the queen I can't stand. You go queen. I can't. That's the shit.
I don't really mind queen as much as goddess. I don't know. No, they're both bad. They're both pretty bad. I can't. I don't like them equally.
Well, unless you're Danny on. She's a goddess. She's a self-proclaimed goddess.
Well, she's Aphrodite, and that's different.
Oh, okay, all right. So she has a goddess pass.
She's going to be on my channel tomorrow.
She is, and that's going to be so awesome. I'm going to be watching from the orifice.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about very sexy topics. Mothers who unalive their children.
And other festive topics.
Yes, and other festive topics. That's pretty much it.
Island is smart as shit. Look at that. She said, last week I said we only have about 10 minutes left. Well, that's a huge relief because we're about 30 minutes behind having 10 minutes left. So
you guys are way smarter than both of us combined.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but if I'm in the equation, that's not really that big of a feat. You just have to be as smart as a normal person plus a little bit to be smarter than one person plus me.
We're in the legal field, Jeff. We're supposed to be smarter than everybody, or at least that's what we tell people. It makes the people feel reassured, right? That's how it's supposed to go.
All right. Well, I'm scrolling this up to like 15 minutes from the end of the video we were watching.
That works.
That's where we are. And anyway, thank you to everybody that joined for Greg Anderson's deal yesterday. That was pretty awesome. That was pretty fun. And if for some reason somebody happens to stumble in here from that or the Clayton Eckerd stream and was wondering what the hell is going on here, this is something we do every Thursday. We do retro trials. Well, we've only done one so far, OJ Simpson, and we're just kind of wrapping up the closing arguments in this for the next few weeks, and then we're going to start on a brand new super secret case that we're going to cover gavel to gavel every Thursday. I mean, we're not going to do the whole trial every Thursday, but bits and pieces every Thursday until we finish it all. And it's hand chosen by, see, that's why her name is C. Handler, because she hand picked the trial.
I did with my own hands.
With her own handlers. With her two handlers.
Yes, I handle things around here.
Says here at the part where Bruce Jenner decided to chop his cock off.
Stop.
I don't think we were there, but you get right off the bat, someone gets 5 minutes in the penalty box for instigating.
Wow.
Shame on you, SR.
Wow, that was
shame on you.
That was really, I mean, we can't tell exactly what moment in time it was, but it took
one moment in time.
And I think technically they turned them inside out, but I don't want to talk about that this early. It's kind of it's early, it's not pleasant.
Right. Well, we're off to a rough start. That's our shame on you. Just get out.
Anybody in chat who's asking questions about my poutiness, it's been covered in previous streams.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, Ms. Jax M, she does it specifically.
I do it when I'm concentrating.
I thought you were doing it to seduce Ms. Jax M.
I'm just blowing kisses at Jeff, obviously.
Well, hey, I understand. You're welcome to do that. Because I've already declared you not guilty.
Look at the mustache. Look at the hat. The sexy, sexy hat. It's a sexy hat.
This is Flux's hat. I'm just like a keeper. I'm just protecting her hat until she wants it back. This is Flux's hat.
It's a statement against the government. It's pretty hot. Just saying.
All right. Well, here we are. All right, everybody. So this is what we do. We do our little OJ thing here, and it's gonna be about 6 or 7 more weeks, and then we're gonna be done with this, and we're gonna be good. So we're gonna jump into this. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping stuff. there's only 86 people here because this is the lowest viewership stream of the week. It's just where we sit back, we chill, we just sort of make snarky comments at everybody involved in the trial, and we just have fun with you here in chat.
MST3K style.
Yeah, we may as well just put that up right now before I forget. Where are we here? The appropriate overlay. Where are you? Where are you, overlay? There we are. Boop.
In the not too distant future.
All right, overlay is in place, and once this gets started, I'll put up some stupid like and subscribe poll. And if we see Smopo Vienna here in chat today, someone let me know, because we got an unboxing to do if Smopo Vienna shows up. So yeah, there's still one more box that the UK is refusing to send me. Joe Choi, check your Twitter DMs from a couple of days ago. Yeah, I know where we left off. I just don't know where it is on the videotape, other than what Island has said about on the videotape. On the videotape.
On the Betamax.
Yeah. Once upon a time, we had these things called videotapes. We're just gonna jump into it. We'll figure out stuff as we go along. So feel free to chat amongst yourselves. Ignore us like you normally do, and just have fun. If Doggo Cam happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Who cares? Because tomorrow evening, U.S. time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to kick off a fantastic Fuck It Friday where we just say F it, and you throw all of your money at me, and sorry, I just saw a tweet from Steve Gosney.
I was going to say, because Jeff's milkshake brings all the ladies to the yard, but what?
No, I bring all the milkshakes to my yard. That's what I'm doing.
Yes, well, we could do a simultaneous milkshake dance, all of us. Hey, it'd be fantastic.
Hey, it's all about doing it simultaneously with like me and 9 chicks. Woo! Anywho. Anyway, Effort Friday, it's just a fun, for those of you that don't know, it's just a fun day where I get all my grifting out in one day. You throw as much money as you can possibly afford to throw at me. Every $100 we do a shot. We see how liquored up I can get. And in the meantime, we provide you with an amazing discussion with an amazing group of people. See, Chandler's seen the tweet too.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say it.
It's cute. All right. So what we're going to have on the panel, this is what I'm calling Legal Vice's Lady Bits. We're only doing ladies. It's a ladies' night on the Effort Friday Griftathon. The first time we've ever done an all-ladies panel. We're going to be talking about everything from red-pilled dudes to what's wrong with the feminist movement to what everybody's up to. We're going to be doing a lot of that stuff. We're going to be talking, and I'm not dumb, so I know that if I have 9 or 10 women, I just shut the fuck up and let them do the things that they do and stay out of the way. As a good host surrounded by a bunch, and I'm gonna be keeping the Alice spot in the middle of the or the Paul Lynn Center Square if you're super old like me. We'll just let the evening play out as it does, and we'll go until you run out of money or I run out of liver. That's the plan. So 7 p.m. Eastern is when that's going to start tomorrow, and the lineup we've got so far. This is the lineup we have, an amazing lineup of people. We've got Danny on Direct. We've got House of Flux, our very own Flux. We've got Lauren De Laguna, influencer. We've got Steph the Alter Nerd. We've got this lovely lady here, Chandler Remington. And the influencer's influencer who you just saw in the introduction video when she was 13 years old, Ari Jacob will be here. Radix Verum, Christina, the government hater, she will be here. Talk with Sally will be here. Waifu Kron Jess will be here. Lead attorney's sidekick AV to the 7th Power will be here. And Lady Law 5791, who is low-key one of the funniest people you'll ever see in your life. And comedian Lila Hart will be here. And top 0.1% OnlyFans content creator Jasmine Jafar will be here. And there's a possibility of a Nina Infinity sighting and a possibility of a Natalie Wisco sighting and others as time permits. So that's what we've got coming up Friday evening, tomorrow night. Do not miss it. It's going to be an awesome effort Friday. Empty those piggy banks, wallets, purses, mattresses, whatever you got. All right. There we go. That's all the background stuff. Let's jump into Johnnie Cochran. Yeah. Because
That's
today,
what
as
you
you will
said.
note, kind of, I guess.
The phrasing doesn't
All
really
right.
work there.
Yeah, this is we'll see. Ona Wall says, I'm waiting to see who starts laying into whom. That's why we're doing an all women's panel. Because I just want like the women to talk about women's things without without people, jumping in and derailing it, and as is wont to happen on F at Fridays. Okay, people. Where are we? All right, let's go. What?
I thought we already figured that out. No.
Well, we've refigured it out. We've refigured out. I just have to push play. And because this is OJ Simpson, I have a new margarita. It's like a new margarita recipe that someone told me about.
Lovely. What's new about it?
Well, so normally you do like an ounce and a half, 2 ounces of tequila, an ounce of triple sec or Cointreau, and like an ounce of lime juice. But someone said, don't put an ounce of lime juice in it. Put the entire lime, like the entire thing with the peel and everything, and all the ingredients in a blender.
With the peel?
Yes, and blend the shit out of it.
Really? Okay.
And I did that.
And
it is so good.
Really?
It's so amazing. But it was kind of flat. It was kind of heavy, so I put it in the freezer for an hour. Oh my God, it's so good. So yeah, that's my new thing.
I want to try that.
Yeah, like just put the whole peel and everything into the blender and just whip it up.
I guess it doesn't have a lot of pith. So that does make sense. It would mostly just be well.
Yeah, it's a little pulpy, which is why like if you freeze it, it tastes really super good. All right, that's it. Let's go. Johnnie Cochran.
Let's do it.
Oh, there I am. I'm muted. I've muted him.
Before and after June 12th, 1994, and the manner in which this man reacted and handled himself.
Ooh, don't handle yourself in
Remember,
public.
let's start off with the week before. We could have gone further back. You know from the evidence that he travels all the time. He hardly has any time to have any fuse for anything. He's never here. He's always traveling for Hertz. He's doing something with sports.
I remember this part.
This particular week was typical of the kind of weeks he has, it seems. He was here on Monday. On Tuesday, he and Paula Barbieri got together and met with this interior designer who'd done work on his house before. She brought out that he's done other work on that house to change the bathroom around and do some other work. She had a budget and they gave her a check. Now, it's so interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
You change your house or get some work done. Mr. Darden says that's to get Nicole out of the house. Is that stupid? I mean, does that make any sense to you?
No,
it makes no sense.
Made it look like a white woman lived there instead of a black
moved on with
man.
his life. He's having some work done, some interior decorating work done. We prove that. You can't see the positive side of that. OJ Simpson, a check for Collins and Collins, was Mary Collins.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Hey, Joe.
$1,000. That was a down payment on the work she was going to do. Again, you saw her. You saw her come in. This work was to be done. They wanted to do it. And Paula Barbieri played a role and a great part in that work. After that, he was on the road. Went back east to play golf with Jack McKay. And you saw Jack McKay. And you remember they were golf buddies. It was a Hertz thing, or not a Hertz thing. This was this association of a retired or something or other. Played golf. But the most important thing
Chandler,
I
want a
thought
Hertz
was Mr.
donut?
McKay indicated that, and there was the foursome. Mr. McKay indicated that he observed Mr. Simpson walking and walking with a limp. You'll recall that.
You haven't heard that joke?
Then we came to the Carol Connor dinner.
Maybe it's a guy thing. Say, hey, do you want a Hertz donut?
Saturday.
Say, what's a Hertz donut? He's like, Hertz donut.
And then we call witnesses from the family.
Yeah, I figured.
Just before we take the dinner break, let's talk briefly
I've seen that in action.
These witnesses from the family and what they had to say. We first called Arnell Simpson. And you saw Arnell on the stand.
My friend had 5 brothers,
Arnell
so
Simpson,
I'm familiar.
defendant's daughter. Born the day he won the Heisman Trophy. Now, any daughter
Wow.
would be proud and want to testify.
I did not know that. She was born on
You
the
saw
day
her
he
on
won the
the stand.
Heisman Trophy.
You got a chance to judge her like you do the other witnesses.
The one that he
to
stole?
observe her credibility and what she
Oh,
had
the
to
one that
tell
somebody
you.
else stole and he stole
She told
back.
you that her father always rushed around.
Yeah.
Tell you something about him too. And when she got out of college at Howard University, she wanted to come home. He had a place for her to come home to. You know, children go away and they come back a lot these days. So
Even more so
Kid
30
O'Kayla.
years later.
they make a big thing about Kid O'Kayla living there. You know, I choose to think says something about OJ Simpson. You know, Kid
It's not a
O'Kayla
boy
lived
thing,
there.
it's a
He
12-year-old
wanted to say,
thing.
"Look, I don't want you living with my wife. We're trying to get back together."
Hence why I said no,
Suppose
thank you.
a guy could say that they're trying to get back together. He didn't say that. Let him come and live there in the other guest house. They turned that around to something bad. That's something positive about this man who with such dignity has sat there for all these months.
He gave his
This
daughter a room
human
and
being,
remodeled a
this
house. He's a
Ronald
great
James
guy.
Simpson. That
What
tells
a
you
kid.
something about him. And so his daughter tells you a lot about him. She can tell a lot about a person, I suppose, by their children. She tells you a lot about him and their living together and their life together and what he
Danny?
meant. About how our little brothers and sisters would come over there in the early morning hours after they were trying to get together in 1994 in May. They'd be out by the pool. She'd see him. About the kind of life they had together and the dogs that they purchased and the kind of things they did. Maybe a little bit of the other side of what these incidents they want to talk about in the distant past.
In the not too distant past. Okay. I'm sorry. This is our lamest poll ever. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and answer. Did OJ give Ron and Nicole a Hertz donut? Yes or no?
Mean.
I make myself laugh sometimes at really inappropriate shit.
I mean, it don't hurt to know more, but
I'm sorry for the poll. It's just the best I could come up with off the top of my head. Right. So
quit these titties. Let's get back into it.
we can change the poll, Chandler. Okay. See, PWE Production says, I'm not going to lie. Honestly, I watched this trial every day it was in session. I did too. As everybody that's a regular here knows, it started halfway through my second year of law school, went through the summer, and finished at the end of the first half of my third year in law school. I missed so much law school because of this. And I videotaped every day that I couldn't watch, and then I would go home and watch it. I watched every damn minute of this trial. So, yeah, I'm there with you. So, all right. We're off to the races with the poll. So far, 80% of you say OJ did give Ron and Nicole a Hertz donut. God, I'm going to go to hell. All right, let's go.
The way OJ Simpson really is and really was. You saw her and you observed her.
Tell me what he was,
She
what he
told
really,
you
really was.
How her father reacted when he got the news that his ex-wife had been killed. She told you she had never before heard her father sound like that. How upset he was. How he lost control of himself. How distraught he was. You heard her. You saw her on that stand. That's why we called her. So you'd have a better understanding, because I knew there'd come a day that Marsha Clark would stand here and say, well, you know, he didn't react like somebody does when they get to this information. Just like she did yesterday. But what Miss Clark forgot, because I examined Detective Phillips, and you look back through your notes, the first thing that OJ Simpson said to Detective Phillips was, what do you mean she's been killed? And then he kept repeating himself and repeating himself, and Phillips, to his credit, said he became very, very upset, kept repeating himself, and Phillips gave the phone to Darnell Simpson. So they can make, she can again,
They can make
theorize,
chicken, what?
fantasize all she wants.
That's racist.
He didn't ask if it was a car accident. You ever had some bad news given to you?
Nope.
There's no book that you go to. The only book you should go to is the Bible or your God, whomever you believe in, to help get you through it.
Wow.
There's nothing that says how you would handle yourself.
The
in those
only book
times.
you should go to
These
is
prosecutors
the
don't
Bible.
understand that.
Oh, wait a minute. There might
They
be
stand here and
non-Christians.
tell you
And whoever
that's
else you happen to
preposterous.
believe in.
This man was upset. And you're going to see
I go to the Talmud, but it's written in
everything he
Aramaic.
did from that moment that he found out that his ex-wife had been killed was consistent only with innocence. absolutely that day. And so Arnell Simpson helps us in that regard. She's followed to the stand by Carmelita Durio.
What?
Sister,
What?
loves her brother,
It's the name of a person.
I think so.
but you knew that.
Could
She was
be.
called to talk about Ron Shipp,
Inagata Davida?
one of the witnesses in this case that the prosecution called. It's interesting, isn't it? That neither one of the prosecutors wanted to talk about this dream because I think they're embarrassed by this. They didn't talk about it.
Was
They
it a
should
wet
be
dream?
embarrassed. A dream.
Weapon
They
of
listed
choice.
evidence about some dream. Was it a daydream? Was it a night dream? Was it a nightmare? Was he looking out the window? What does it mean? Even the
Sexy
judge,
dream.
his instruction, you can totally disregard that. If you got to figure out, I mean, who knows what that means? It probably doesn't mean anything because Shipp did not tell you the truth. If you listen to Carmelita, if you listen to
Nice.
Shirley, if you listen to Miss Eunice Simpson, Shipp was never alone with OJ Simpson that night.
I love going to LA
He's
and
an
like
OJ
hitting
wannabe.
the Celebrity Center,
Bringing
and then
police officers
the
over
little
there,
the little
still
original one
wanting to
that's
be a
on
police
Hollywood,
officer
like
off
on the
the
Hollywood
force for
Boulevard there
whatever
with the
reason,
Walk of Fame.
Drinking that night, drinking in the past as he said he was.
Mm-hmm.
He's not credible. And the evidence he brings is so unreliable. It's so irrelevant.
That's where Xenu
I don't wanna
hides
spend
in the
much of your time
volcano.
with it. But you saw it, you heard them. I ask you to consider Carmelita, Shirley, and Eunice as against Ron Shipp, and I ask you who you're going to believe. I think it'll be no contest. And so you remember what Miss Eunice Simpson said when she said that he seemed a bit spacey, was the way she described it.
Was he just a bit
He was
spacey, or
never
was
alone.
he Kevin Spacey?
Never talked about any dreams when Shirley went upstairs with her
See,
husband.
now I have Warren
They
Zevon's
spent the night
Carmelita lyrics
with O.J.
running through my
Simpson.
head.
This was
Damn
a
it!
time for family.
On
This
a
was
scale of
time
1 to
where people
Kaiser
gathered around.
Soze, how
This is a
spacey
time
was
for
he?
people being sad.
Exactly.
They sat on the couch with O.J. Simpson holding his mother's hand. You remember that?
Nice.
My mother always told me that you could tell a lot about a person, but how they treat their mother. You probably have heard that too.
It's OJ's father there.
And your mother is the one who always comes for you and to you in times of tragedy and stress.
Phrasing.
True to those words,
I'm not going to make
there
a
was
California
Eunice
Raisins
Simpson as
joke.
she
I'm
is
not going to do
this
it.
very day. Right there by her son's
No.
side, sitting on that couch.
Chandler.
Who are you gonna believe?
Goodbye,
Eunice
Chandler. It was nice
Simpson?
having you here.
A Ron Shipp, this wannabe.
Wearing purple. What was I supposed to do?
I submit.
I didn't make the
gonna-
joke. I didn't say it.
Eunice Simpson. She knows her boy. He knows his mother.
Fruit of the loom.
And
Yeah.
each of these witnesses who dealt with O.J. Simpson, and let me just
You know who else knew his mother?
quickly come
Oedipus.
to a-
Oedipus
to a
loved his
logical
mother.
breaking point so you can get to your dinner.
So I've heard.
Yeah, Oedipus Rex really loved his
Alan
mother.
Who she placed such great credence
Looks
in.
like that one.
Found O.J. Simpson to be,
You're welcome.
his demeanor to be normal. Never met him before. He was a normal guy. He was glad to be carrying O.J. Simpson around. The only thing he said was interesting. He said, you know, he said he was hot in the back. Now, O.J. Simpson himself said he was hot in the back of the car. And I thought about this today. And this morning when I was rushing around, trying to get dressed and come to court today to look forward to seeing you all again for another year and a day, I took a shower and I was trying to get dressed and I kept sweating. I kept sweating. And I thought about how that applies to this case, because you know we talk about common sense.
I thought that was
You
Snoop
ever
Dogg.
rush around and take a shower and you're sweating? O.J. Simpson always rushes around, according to his daughter, according to Gigi.
Phrasing.
Those are the kind of common sense things we know.
I'm laughing too hard.
And
I
so-
can't close it.
When we come back this afternoon, we're going to talk about
Oh, we're
Taylor
off to the
Kinley, how he
races
found O.J.
today.
Simpson to
God
be
dang it.
the
Oh,
same O.J. Simpson.
Off to the racist.
We're going to talk
apparently.
about a
oh
range
shut
of
up,
people
Chandler. Oh my
who
God.
see this man from 11 o'clock on till the next morning.
I've only
till
had
he comes
3
back.
sips of this so far.
We'll take them
You
one
can't
at a
blame
time,
the
but they
alcohol.
all have one thing in common. It's O.J. Simpson,
Mm.
and he's acting normally. He's himself, not acting. And the thing that I think is probably best, and there are a number of good witnesses in that regard,
That
but
girl
Howard
is
Dean
on fire.
is a
We'll be
well-known
here all
person
week,
around here.
I
And
guess.
let me end on this point.
No, I'm gonna
Howard
take
Bingham
Sorry,
gets
I
on
was
the plane
watching
and he-
Hunger
it's funny
Games
because he was
Mockingjay
in
Part
coach
1
and he wanted
earlier,
to try
so
to
that's not
explain
great
that
in
to
my
you while he
head.
was sitting back there and coaching. OJ was in first class, and he sees OJ and he runs up there to say hello to him before the plane takes off, remember? And I asked him, well, how did OJ Simpson seem to you this evening? He said, it was the same OJ I've always seen and known. And so rhetorically, I ask you again, Howard Bingham, in this area
Binger.
for years, known OJ for years, who do you think
Here, I hardly knew him.
knows OJ Simpson better? Howard Bingham or Marsha Clark and Chris Darden? When we come
Well,
back,
in
we'll answer
fairness,
that question.
he could
Thank you.
constantly 24/7 be in a murderous rage.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess
Yeah, if he's
for
being
the
himself.
afternoon. Please remember all.
All right, well, that's the end of that video. So hey, thank you to Island for saying we were about 10 minutes away from the end. You saved us from watching at least 30 minutes of unnecessary crap. And I'm bringing up the next one immediately here, so we can stay ahead of ourselves. All right, let's see. And biggin. There we go. And oh, turn down the volume. Turn down the volume. All right, there we go.
All right, let the record reflect that we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Good
strange to
evening.
say that, but I appreciate your hanging in there. A little chilly? Okay. All right, Mr. Cochran, you may
chilly.
continue with your
Wow, it seems
closing
extra
argument.
loud right now.
Thank you, Alan.
It does.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad you all came back. I appreciate that. Oh, I guess so. Now, where were we when we left off? We were talking about demeanor, Mr. Simpson's demeanor. And I think I had posed a question with you just before
Poser.
we took our break about Howard Bingham, the photographer who testified here. And I asked you the question, a rhetorical question, about who would know OJ Simpson the better in his mood and how he appeared on this night, the prosecutors or Mr. Bingham, who'd known him for such a long time? It was a serious question because prosecutors, I presume, never met Mr. Simpson before we started this process. So I think it would be relevant for you.
Can
to
I
know
get
about
chili
how
in Korea?
somebody
I
who
make
knew
my
him over a period of
own. I make
time
my own damn
saw him
good
on that
chili.
particular date, especially when they go into their doctor mode and they use terms like post-homicidal conduct. There's been no testimony in this case at all about post-homicidal conduct and about demeanor, about anybody acts in a post-homicidal conduct. That again is more speculation.
Post homosexual conduct.
The case was we tried to call for you a number of witnesses who I think bear on this issue of demeanor, which it seems to us is totally relevant.
I'm trying to set the
And one
volume.
thing,
Don't
it
make me
totally
laugh.
rebuts this specious theory about any kind of a fuse or any rage that you've seen. We've done that. We've shared that with you already. And in the course of wrapping that up, keep in mind that both Cato Kalin and Alan Park fall into the category of demeanor witnesses who place Mr. Simpson's demeanor as being entirely appropriate. And these are people's witnesses. So it doesn't matter whether we call the witnesses or they do. If you're in a search for truth, you look and see if there's a common thread of truth that runs throughout these witnesses. And I think we found that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to share with you, yesterday, Ms. Clark in her argument tried to indicate something to the fact that Mr. Simpson didn't want Cato Kalin, I believe, to spend time with him or something of that nature.
Yes,
he wanted to get
chili
rid of Cato
has
Kalin.
beans.
It was
Screw
part of
everyone
her-
that says
her
it
theory
doesn't.
there. And I went back and I looked at the
Agreed.
testimony at 19854, Ms. Clark herself, when questioning Cato Kalin. When you got to that location, what did you do? When I got to the door, yes, I turned. Okay, what did you see?
Did a little murdering.
And where was he? At the driver's side door of the Rolls. Did you say anything to him? No. What did you do? I looked and said, I'll eat in my room. And then he went off and to ate in his room. But there was no, further on it says, did you have any conversation with Mr. Simpson? Answer was no. And he said nothing to you? No. So I think that was important to understand and put that record straight, that there was no discussion about whether Cato would go in the house with Mr. Simpson or whatever. They didn't talk.
Cato the
Cato
dog.
went back to his room. Simpson was still out at his Bentley. presumably trying to get ready to, go on this trip, which was long planned. There'd been some mention earlier of an argument at a Christmas party. And I wanted to, again, try and set the record straight before we went on with demeanor, because I pulled up Cato Kalin's testimony again. And what he says was,
what do you call Demeanor's daughter? Misdemeanor.
Did everybody go home together?
There has to
Answer,
be a Christmas
yes.
joke, Jeff. It's
Everybody
how many hoes did I
celebrate
hear?
Christmas Eve back at home? Answer, at Rockingham, yes. Question, Nicole, OJ, and the kids? Answer, yes. Question, and yourself? Answer, and Arnell and Jason?
Because Texas
Question,
chili is less
whole
than.
family? Yes. Now, what they do is they tell you, well, there was an argument at the Jenners, and they don't tell you was, remember the testimony
Don't push
was
it by front.
they left the Jenners to go back home because it was Christmas Eve, and they all celebrated Christmas Eve together. So you got to have the whole picture, don't you? Don't you think that seems reasonable? And there was some question about the flashlight.
People find about chili
And
in the chat.
here's what Cato Kalin had to say about that, where he says, then I said, OJ, do we have a better flashlight? And when I told him about the noise, he was going to take one way, I was going to go another way. But that is when I said, we have this lousy flashlight, we need another one. And so he was going to go inside and check. And then they went in the house, he followed behind. And then that's when Mr. Simpson had to then leave for the airport. So I think that, again, I promised you I would always try to read the actual testimony to make it as clear as I could about where we were. A few other housekeeping things before we get directly into the demeanor aspect. Ms. Clark yesterday had made a number of points about phone calls and boards to Paula Barbieri. And you'll recall we saw a number 305, which I think is in the Miami area code. And I think
She's a
the
305.
that's a cell phone of some
She's
kind.
a German Shepherd.
And certainly if you call that phone number out here, you can reach
Just
people
one
on a
extra
cell
for being
phone.
a 304?
And I find nothing unusual about that in regard to the calls that were made. There also was some discussion about what Dr. Batten
What's up,
had to
John
say
Byrne? John Byrne, the
about
man responsible
his
for all of
cuts
these cool
or
emojis
cut
that
on
you
Mr.
members
Simpson's
use.
hand. You recall that
yes.
Brian Kilberg came back down here again, and he asked some
John Byrne.
questions of Dr. Batten. And I tried to pull up this testimony so I'd have it clear about when Mr. Simpson had gone to the Bronco to get the portable phone, when he went back to the Bronco, apparently to get the paraphernalia in that phone, and try to piece together as to when he got a small cut on his hand, not any large fishhook cut, which I think was clear from the evidence. At what point that he may have bled inside that Bronco and may or may not have known that. And so we read Batten, and this is at page 41182. Question by Mr. Kilberg, I believe. What, if anything, did Mr. Simpson have to say as to the manner when he got the cuts? Answer, that he recalls some blood after trying to retrieve his phone or some material from the Bronco, from a car. From
We
a car
are spirits in
that
the
he had
material, Bronco.
his phone. I think it was the Bronco, that he'd gone to the Bronco to get something and may have somehow cut himself while getting stuff from the Bronco to bring with him to Chicago. Well, I think that it's important
To
tie
rescue
this in with the
Strawberry's
fact
ball
that-
from behind the
remember that
guitar.
Cato
Hang
Kalin,
on.
and I think even Alan Park indicated that by the time they were there, when Mr. Simpson finally came down the stairs, when he
Jeff is a
left,
dead dog,
there
Dad.
were bags already down. Certainly the golf bag and this other bag, there were bags already out there. So he'd been outside in that yard. And apparently, according to Ms. Clark's testimony, had been at some point out to the Bronco. And at some point, he'd gotten this phone, this portable phone. Because we know he'd gotten it because he'd made a phone call on that phone
Some kind of portable phone.
by 10
see?
o'clock or by 10:03. Car wasn't moving. This is a portable phone.
1995.
And remember, I asked Gigi Guerin, were there any portable phones inside that house? The testimony, there were none. So there was no wireless telephone at Rockingham. So I think the testimony is, and the reasonable inference is, that Mr. Simpson
Yes,
made
this
that
was in the
cell
internet's
phone
infancy.
from that location
In the world,
to
not the
her
internet
cell
in
phone
infancy,
number,
the World Wide
305.
Web infancy.
area code. Then once
1995.
they left, as I told you,
You've
they left
got
with
mail.
Park, and we know that was around 11:02. So now Mr. Simpson's in the car, and as you know how Park describes OJ Simpson. Nothing out of the ordinary. He says he's hot, but that's nothing unusual. And then Mr. Simpson gets to the airport. Do you remember those two young men who came in? Michael Norris and Michael Gladden. And these are the two airport couriers who were parked at the curb there. And one of them, Gladden, wanted to get Mr. Simpson's autograph.
What?
You'll recall that. And so,
sweet.
even though Mr. Simpson was rushed and trying to get to the plane or whatever,
That's
he
pretty
stopped
cool.
and he gave his OJ Simpson Peace to You. That was a signature that he gave at about, I think the testimony was 11:25 that particular night on June 12th. That was a testimony of Gladden. And remember, they described OJ Simpson as being kind of like a model or some kind of a poster boy for these jeans or whatever he had on. I think the way they described it, they felt that he was dressed very neatly, looked very clean is the way they described him.
Nothing got between him and
he
his
was very
Calvins.
approachable. He put some luggage down and then turned around and forgot about the autograph and then gave the autograph. You recall that. It was very interesting because Ms. Clark said yesterday something to the effect, well, Mr. Simpson didn't put on his socks because he left his socks at home. Now, that was one of the most interesting things she said. You've been in this man's closet. You think that O.J. Simpson has one pair of socks? I don't think so. I think you saw his closet. You saw the clothes.
Marsha's in the
way
closet?
they were
What?
lined up and the way they were. In fact, remember, I asked the witness the question. Is it trendy? Is it fashionable that a lot of people in that part of town don't wear socks when they get dressed up to go out?
Is that
Somebody
true,
said, yes,
Chandler?
that's fashionable. That's what
Yes.
happens. O.J. Simpson has lots of socks.
We don't like
And
socks
the
out
evidence
here.
is, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because under the prosecution's
Chandler
theory,
Remington,
if you follow their
fact
theory,
checker.
you're asked to believe that Mr.
I know
Simpson
about socks and I
is
know.
in
It's a sexy subject.
sweats and tennis shoes, and I presume tennis socks. That he gets this urge to go and kill his wife, and he takes off
We've all had
his
that
tennis
urge.
shoes and his tennis socks
We just don't do
and
it.
puts on some dress
If you
socks
had a
and
wife.
dress shoes. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Thankfully, I
But keeps
dumped
on
her
his
before
sweat
that.
clothes, according to them.
She was
That's how
nuts.
preposterous their theory is to try to make things fit. And you're going to see, you're going to understand that even better when we talk about these socks.
Fox, no.
As O.J. Simpson then gets on the plane. And it was interesting because not only did he deal with Norris and Gladden, but he had an interesting man in the first class across from Steve Valerie. You saw Valerie, young man who
Stolen
for
valor.
pretty much most of that flight watched O.J. Simpson. Mr. Douglas, what's that number, sir? 1245. It just gives you some
Seven.
idea of this plane. We've
What's the
talked
number?
earlier about Bingham, and remember,
But
Valerie
talking
was
about
right
the
across from
trial,
O.J.
I do
Simpson
like the way
as
he's
he
just
sat up there
walking
in
through the
fourth seat or
witnesses and
something
what
like
they
that.
showed.
And he watched him and noticed him and described for you Mr.
From
Simpson's
being like-
demeanor
From
Do
the
you remember what
time,
that guy
at
said?
O.J. Simpson's hand.
yeah, no, I think
That
this
was
guy,
really
this
one of
one
the
guy
important
said
things about
something.
it.
Y'all remember
Because
that, right?
again, when Ms.
No, he
Clark,
just says
who
from the
was
time they
Dr.
went to
Clark
the
in this
dance
regard,
recital,
talked to you
to
about
getting on the
these-
plane,
this
to
cut or
coming
whatever,
back, et cetera,
she was describing how a little cut wouldn't make
minute
this
by
amount of
minute,
blood,
laying
this-
out who
this
he was
larger
with,
cut.
how he acted, and what he
By
said.
all of
That's
the witnesses
masterful.
who didn't know each other, O.J. Simpson did not have this fishhook cut on his hand when he went to Chicago. That's unanimous. All the witnesses. You heard them. You saw them. Further, you heard the testimony of Drs. Heisinger and Baden, who said, this is not consistent with a knife cut. It's consistent with some kind of glass cut because it's raggedy, it's jagged. You remember that?
Raggedy
You
and
remember the
jaggedy.
testimony?
If it's
And we
raggedy
can
and
prove it
jaggedy,
further
you must
by witnesses
quit.
who saw him before he was in that room in Chicago and
Never
witnesses
mind.
who saw him
You tried. You
after.
tried. You made an effort.
And we'll talk
Yeah.
about that. So on the plane was Bingham, and then we had the pilot on the plane.
The
The
palate.
pilot who was flying the plane came back
Palette.
and asked Mr. Simpson to autograph the logbook, which he did, and I think we have a photograph of that. Again, you saw
Raggedy
Pilot
jaggedy,
stands
don't talk back.
who described how
Oh, it's
Mr.
like
Simpson
goatee. Brad.
was seated
Hey.
there reading a book,
What up?
a light shining down on him,
Aw.
not trying to hide from anybody.
Called How to Get
Not
Away with
anything.
Murdering Your
Sitting
Wife.
there reading a book, looked up,
Woo,
Talk to
J.A.
the
in the house. What's
Gave
up,
his autograph.
What
J.A.?
up?
They both continued on.
Morning,
with their
LV
business.
and CR. LV, CR, do you
Then
know
he
about
gets
the
to
ghost
Chicago
of
and he
Johnnie
lands, and
Cochran
he
from the
deals with
comedy show
Jim
Mind
Merrill,
of
the Hertz
Mencia?
driver. You'll recall him. Hertz driver describes
No.
the number of bags that Mr. Simpson has.
Sounds
The
weird.
luggage when he arrives.
Could be
He
funny.
describes the duffel bag.
Is it
The
white?
black duffel bag, the
That's the
garment
weird thing.
bag.
What if
with
you were black and
OJS,
had a white ghost?
the
Wouldn't that be
golf
like
bag,
offensive to yourself?
the Louis Vuitton bag,
That's a good question, Jeff. Asking the real tough
all those
questions out here.
bags
Oh,
are
seriously,
described by Merrill.
are black people's ghosts
Then, of
white?
course, you remember we talked about the knapsack bag, which we think logically had golf balls in it. It was inside
I've
the
literally
golf bag.
never thought about that.
So Merrill watched OJ in the luggage area meet with some, I think, say 20
Mencina is a
different
ghost.
fans.
Is a joke
while
thief.
waiting for his
I don't
luggage.
know Mencina,
Merrill
but
says he was
Mencina
friendly,
is a joke thief.
You almost
Relaxed,
said ghost thief.
and he saw
steals
no
ghosts.
noticeable cuts on his hands. That's what Jim Merrill told us. This was his testimony. So we brought him here from Chicago to testify in that regard. Now I want you to contrast Mr. Simpson's demeanor and behavior after he goes to this hotel room in Chicago. After he learns of his ex-wife's death,
They're transparent. You bigot.
everybody is consistent. And again, these witnesses don't know this person. He was emotional, concerned with the cut finger. They've killed us. And Mr. Simpson gets the call. Here's what I want you to think with me for a moment. I want you to look at how he reacts
Oh my god.
to this information. We've already covered how his daughter describes him. She's never heard him like this before.
No, his name is Carlos Mencina,
He
not
immediately
Mencia. There's an N in there.
Gets plane
Mencina.
reservations to come back to Los
No, I'm
Angeles.
pretty sure it's Mencia.
That's
He's
Mencina.
then trying to get back, frantically trying to leave this
I think.
hotel.
Now you're making me doubt
It's early in
myself.
the morning.
It's Mencia.
He's trying to get back to Los Angeles on the first thing flying.
Holy shit, it's
Trying to get
Mencia.
somebody to take him back to the
Fuck
airport.
me.
He's
There's
there
no
to
end
play
in
in a
there.
golf tournament that day.
I stand corrected. I have been calling him Carlos Mencina like literally until now. Holy crap. I apologize to everyone in chat for being an idiot.
It's just
Holy
one letter.
crap.
It's not a big deal, really.
No, it is a big deal because I've been calling him okay, I can't even blame like the Mandela effect because I just
You
always thought
could.
his name was Mencina. Like
No,
from Mencina Boulevard.
I don't know what that is.
It was an Encino joke, but never mind. Wow. All right. So I'm an idiot.
Wait,
It is Mencia.
an Encino joke?
Just,
Like,
not just Mencia, Encino. It's close enough to make a joke about. Moving right along to Jim Satala, who's been a member for 6 months. I watched most of the trial live in the 90s, and I was 80% sure he did it. Now, after rewatching it numerous times and reflecting, I'm 90% sure he's innocent. I still think he probably should have been found guilty, but he has really great lawyers, and the prosecution sucked giant balls.
and he probably
Obviously,
did it.
That's never
Probably
going to
did.
happen.
I don't think he did it. I still don't
we
think
know
he
that
did
Dave
it.
Kilduff, the Hertz manager,
Wait,
Jeff.
what was the Hertz guy's name? Wait a minute. You can't be named that in a murder trial. Hang on. We have to go back a few seconds.
it's early in the morning. He's trying to get back to Los Angeles on the first thing flying. He's trying to get somebody to take him back to the airport. He's there to play in a golf tournament that day. Obviously, that's never going to happen. So we know that Dave Kilduff, the Hertz manager,
You can't be named Dave Kilduff in a murder trial. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. Did Chandler snort laugh? No, that was me. I snort laughed. I take full responsibility for snort laughing.
It was Jeff. Yes.
Yeah.
drove Mr. Simpson to
Well,
the
I've probably
airport.
done that at one point or
And
another.
how he describes, now this is the first witness, OJ Simpson's finger is bleeding. And this fish hook cut, this cut that he got in that room when that broken glass was there. For the prosecutors, again, with a cynical view, say, well, that couldn't have happened. Dr. Batten says that in talking to Mr. Simpson, he got that cut when he brushed this glass into the sink. It's entirely consistent. Doctors deal with cuts, and they said this is consistent with a glass cut. Kilduff says that OJ Simpson is crying and he's upset.
Crying.
He finally makes the plane, and I think it's important to note that when he makes the plane, he sits next to, I think in seat 9, to a lawyer by the name of Mark Partridge, just fortuitous. And I thought it was very interesting about this man, Partridge. Remember, he's the man who was a patent lawyer who'd gone
Sitting
to
next to a guy
Harvard.
named Peartree.
And he observed OJ Simpson on this flight back. He saw him make these phone calls. He saw his emotional state. He saw him trying to gather information. He saw his finger. He saw the Band-Aid he'd had that came off. He saw that it was cut. You saw his testimony. These were all citizen timeline witnesses, like you or I, who were brought here pursuant to subpoena. They didn't ask to be here. They didn't volunteer, but they had relevant information about what had taken place and what had happened. So it seems to me that we, in our search for justice and our journey toward the city of justice, must take these witnesses seriously. But you understand,
The
with
city
power
of justice.
prosecution,
Los
yes, equal
Angeles?
access to all these witnesses, but
No,
they didn't call
they're,
them.
they're metaphorical
call them
closing
because they didn't
argument
fit.
city of justice.
They didn't
Okay,
fit and they didn't
not
want
a
to
lot
hear.
of justice happens here necessarily. I'm
just-
just gonna
yeah,
put
well,
it that way.
Yeah, well, no, that was in response to the burning building and rescuing the baby Justice from the burning building.
That right.
Yeah, he said it's not entering a burning building to save baby Justice. It's a journey. It's a journey to the city of justice.
They're both stupid metaphors. The fuse and the baby, just
Baby Justice lives in the city of justice.
stupid. Asinine.
Yes, that could be true, Chandler.
What?
It could be stupid.
Yes.
Could
But
very
obviously
well be.
it was more effective. I'm not, look, he has a better order style. He has, But did he speak jive? I think he spoke some jive.
Would you gentlemen care to order your dinners?
Bet, babe. Slide a piece of the porter. Drinks, I run the job.
Look at here. I can dig grease and trumpet on some butter and drag him through the garden.
They do. All right, let's go.
Decided to attack. And you'll remember how these witnesses generally were treated.
By the way, Jeff,
I
the
thought
look on
Partridge
your
was treated
face. That was the look on
especially-
your
Yeah.
face when we were watching the whole
Here's a man who
that
was so
trial with that
concerned
one guy.
about no one.
Yeah, that
hearing
one
his
trial,
notes.
that
He
one
wrote
guy,
notes
exactly.
Yeah, the
about
black
what took
guy
place.
that,
Not the publishing. He's
You're
a
not
patent
helping.
lawyer, so he understood. He put his name on the side in the margin to write down his notes because he knew it would be important. And he said he knew this would be important. And he sent those notes to the prosecution and to the defense. Said, I'm just a witness here. This is what I saw. Can I be of some help? They chose not to call him. They chose to attack him as though he had like something to hide. In fact, remember Ms. Clark standing and saying something to the effect, well, you know how busy the LAPD was when they didn't have time to respond to you? Well, maybe not. But this was an important witness. That was the
Yeah, there was
only
a lot of
person
crack back then.
in the
People were
world
selling it. It was a
who
problem.
sat next to OJ Simpson on a flight back from Chicago when everything he was doing, continues to do, was consistent with innocence. They didn't want to hear it, but we brought this again for you to hear. And I ask you to judge this witness as you do all the others. You remember Mark Partridge, and I think you will. And remember that it was unfair to attack a witness, a citizen witness, who seemed to be totally objective and careful. Then there was Ken Barris, the police officer
Don't
in
be
Chicago.
embarrassed.
Ms. Clark talked about him coming out here, but we brought him out here. We brought Ken Barris out here. He was the police officer who maybe 3 hours after O.J. Simpson left that room, went into that room at the O'Hare Plaza, was it? 11 o'clock or thereabouts, I believe. He said he went in the room. He found the glass. He found the doily. He found the towel. He found the bedding because the maids had not done anything with regard to that room. He found this
Lazy
broken
maids.
glass. And the evidence is, contrary to what the prosecutor would try to tell you, is that this glass was consistent with O.J. Simpson cutting his hand on it.
Wait,
This
so
is
he
the cut.
found a
It's the
broken
official cut.
glass in his hotel room?
Yes.
That's the
Now-
argument?
Yes.
You
don't
characterize
Cut his
believe
witnesses
hand
like
because he
Kato
broke a
Kalin
glass in his
and
hotel room.
Partridge, Denise Pilnack,
broke
and some
it.
others who
Yes.
felt the wrath of the prosecution. And you have to ask yourself why
I
in
mean,
the search for truth. Why did that happen? Then Mr. Simpson returns back from Chicago. And this was very interesting. And you will recall, because Officer Don Thompson saw some of you looking at him. He's a very, very impressive big fellow. He's about 6'7" or 8". He's a big guy. You remember, he's the officer who was very interesting and very honest, because he said that immediately upon Mr. Simpson coming back to Rockingham at 12 noon now on June 13th, what happens? Van Adder had told him to hook him up. Let's see that if we can. We'll give you the number in a minute, Your Honor. You'll recognize Officer Thompson and Mr. Simpson. You notice he grabbed hold to him at that moment. You'll recall that Officer Thompson had testified how he'd been told by Van Adder to hook him up or to handcuff him. He grabbed him by the arm as he went in there. And you recall the photograph. I think that's Thompson there in the background and the foreground. Thought Mr. Harris had that, but at any rate, you'll recall Mr. Simpson was standing over under a tree and he was handcuffed until the lawyer Howard Weitzman came. You recall that because we saw that during the trial.
He's hiding under a tree. Tracking.
Howard Weitzman, lawyer, he's talking to Mr. Simpson.
This is the Los Angeles police officer in his native habitat.
Here he is, planting some crack cocaine under a bush.
Rocking back and forth as he presents to the female officers in an attempt to seduce them.
Now Van Adder's going over to him and taking the handcuffs off, I believe, as the conversation goes on with Howard Weitzman.
Not now, she says. Wait till I'm working Vice.
This week in Bags and Asses 2.
I think this was Bags and Asses 3, actually. It's the threequel.
Yeah.
All right, he's unhandcuffed at this point. Thank you, Mr. That was number 1250, was it? 527?
90s asses hit different.
The point of that was, we have said, and I told you at the beginning and told you in the opening statement and told you again today, this was a rush to judgment. At 12 o'clock on June 13th, Van Adder told Thompson to handcuff OJ Simpson or to hook him up. Van Adder lied about that because he said in his testimony, he never told him that. Thompson was very clear that he told him. He didn't do that on his own. But it shows this rush to judgment. Van Adder did not want to admit that and never did. We'll talk more about him when we discuss the officers together. But it seems to me the important thing for us to remember is that after this video, Mr. Simpson, you'll recall, is on his way downtown in a vehicle with Van Adder and Lang. You remember Howard Weitzman talks to Van Adder. Simpson gets in the car with the police in the back. Goes downtown
in the back
without
seat.
either his business lawyer or Howard Weitzman. Rides with the police. We know, according to the testimony in this case, he talks with Van Adder and Lang once he gets down there. I think we asked both of them about this conversation. We've heard nothing else about this conversation. He has no lawyer in there with him. He has no lawyer in the car when he goes downtown. After he makes this statement to the police, which we haven't heard, he then gives a blood sample sometime around 2 o'clock or whatever that afternoon on the 13th. He voluntarily gives his blood sample.
And he was pregnant with twins.
Has a photograph taken of the cut on his finger. There's no lawyer present during all that. The lawyers are someplace else at that point. So Simpson is dealing with this himself. So he wants to clear this up. He's innocent. He wants to get it over with. Everything this man does,
including the pregnancy,
with innocence. He finds out. He gets the first thing smoking. He comes back here. He goes right to his residence. He talks to the police. He goes downtown with the police. He goes in a room with the police. He has his finger photographed. He gives blood. His lawyers are off someplace else. That's
now,
what
ladies and
this man did.
gentlemen of the jury,
on
you're all
June
black.
13th.
You wouldn't go anywhere with the
They
police
weren't there
voluntarily.
then. That's what he did. Consistent with innocence. They want to talk
In
about
LA?
luggage.
No.
The testimony again of this honest police officer, Thompson, is that they wouldn't let OJ Simpson's luggage on the premises. They talk about Bob Kardashian. They smear Bob Kardashian, a good and successful, decent businessman and friend. He can't come on the premises. They have to take the luggage away. Now, these people have search warrants. They can do whatever they want to do at that point. They have the power of the state. And they have the audacity to stand here and tell you that when
Wait, they have the audacity
brings in the Louis Vuitton bag months and months and months later, there's no clothes in it? Now, is that folly? They're not supposed to unpack it? That is silly. I shouldn't waste my time on it, but that's what was said here. You heard it.
American Dreamer says,
They are
thank
the
God
ones
they didn't shit him.
Turned away the luggage. So you remember that when they stand up here and try to talk to you about any luggage and they didn't have it or what was in the luggage or what was it? He brought the luggage back. And if he didn't have, by the way, that portable phone in his luggage, you'd hear about that also. So understand, we're going to talk about the facts, not any speculation. So what more then could an innocent man do? We talked briefly about the cut or cuts on OJ Simpson's hand. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the one cut, and these officers are there with their photographer. They take a photograph of this cut. Do you remember in those other pictures, there was a cut on the side of his finger here, or nick or something like that. Looked like a paper cut, I think they said. And it's interesting because if that cut had been there.
I wonder if Law and Lumber
June
made that
13th,
pen.
At 2 o'clock or whatever time
Which
they
pen?
took it.
Doesn't it make a lot of pens?
Do you think the police would have
The
taken
one that
photograph
Johnnie
of that?
Cochran's using.
They didn't, because he probably wasn't there at that point. So it's
Might have
very
been.
interesting. This is the only cut they got. But we know that he nicked himself in several places, according to what he told Dr. Michael Batten. Ms. Clark makes a big thing about some smear or some little tiny smear of blood in the bathroom upstairs. O.J. Simpson had been back home since Friday.
Rain on the
Shaved,
scarecrow,
whatever.
blood on the bathroom.
I don't know when that got there. He didn't know when that got there. But it struck you as strange that under her hypothesis, under her theory, he comes back home with these bloody shoes on, bloody clothes, with his white carpet, goes upstairs. There's no blood anywhere. A little tiny speck in the bathroom. Does that seem to you to be reasonable or rational or related to this case? One thing about blood spots, you can never date them, you can never tell generally how old they are. Another thing that doesn't fit, the fingerprints. They didn't call them, but we called. Gilbert Aguilar, you remember that. He's the fingerprint expert. He examined and dusted and found 17 latent prints that he was able to lift at Bundy. The crime scene, the gate, the fence, the front door. He was able to identify 8 of the prints after comparing the known exemplars of the known ones being the police officers and people that you might expect around there. But there were 9 identifiable prints that were never identified. Remember I asked about these various systems that you can put the prints in. Doesn't work for palms, but it works for prints. What efforts did you take to try to find out who do these 9 identifiable prints belong to? To this day, we don't know. Are those the prints of the real killers? We will never know. They have not found those prints. We brought this witness in for you.
Fair point.
We established this for you. The fingernail scrapings. Mr. Scheck will talk more about this EAPB. But remember, there's no literature to justify how they'd want to contort and twist this. This double-banded B is more like a B than anything they can ever justify. And it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in their case, so they can't explain it. It's like the number 4 allele on the steering column. There's no number 4s in this case. It doesn't fit.
Say it.
If it doesn't fit,
Yes.
you must acquit. They don't and they cannot explain that. Dr. Irwin Golden, the missing coroner. This man was trashed by his own department. It was brutal by his own boss. And if he thinks he was going to be treated any better, remember how Kelberg dismissed him at the end. He said, by the way, next time you come and testify,
It's like Kiwi's Playhouse.
That was his last
It's the secret
remarks
phrase of the
to
day.
a man. You look at your notes. His last remarks to a man, he kept on this stand for 8 days to tell us that the cause of death was stabbing. The time of death was between 9 and 12. That it could have been a single edge, a double edge. 9. That's how they treated their own witness they kept there, the coroner of Los Angeles County. But they didn't call Dr. Goldman. Why not? Why is that? Why are we left to speculate about that? They didn't like his testimony? He couldn't help them. It's the more logical and reasonable inference, isn't it? Whenever there's a witness that they couldn't fit within their little theory, they abandon him and talk bad about him. A rush to judgment. Detective Phillips, the very, very beginning of this case, remember I had Phillips as a witness. He's a nice man. And I quote him when he said, remember when he called the coroner after all these hours out there. Now, you remember he's off the case by then too, because, you know, the robbery homicide division is taken over. They find that out at 2 something in the morning, remember? And they wait for Lang and Van Etter to come until after 4 something. Here's Phillips still out there now. They're over at Bundy and they call the coroner. It's like 8 hours later now, as I recall. And what does he say? There's a little tape, I think, that we may have. He says, I think, quote, we're sort of breaking the rules here.
No.
They're worried about how they're going to look. They're worried about the press more than they're worried about these bodies that are still out there, more than they're worried about people traipsing through that crime scene, more than they're worried about trying to protect the innocent and pursue the guilty, which they should be doing, which they're required to do under the law. Notify the coroner immediately.
We're kind of not following procedures, but we're kind of asking a favor and, you know, kind of work a little bit on this one. Okay, you're at the scene now? Yeah. Okay, but what is your call number at the station? 310 575 8441. Do we have names on these people? No, I don't. Okay, both males or? A male, female, a female and a male. Are they Caucasian? Both.
Sarasota, breaking the rules, not calling criminalists. This is in the early morning hours. You remember that? Look at your notes. It's like 8 o'clock or so, isn't it? 6 o'clock. Now it's 8 o'clock because they're back from Rockingham. It's 8 o'clock in the morning now. His bodies were found by Risky at 12:13. Coroner didn't come until about 10 o'clock. Remember that?
77 mechanic member for 2 months, and I was born during this trial. I think sometime during Funk's testimony. It was the day after the juror protest. Sweet.
So this case is all about not following the rules. They're more worried about vanity and things like that, not about these victims.
Vanity. She used to sing backup for Prince.
We can demand more and should demand more of our police, and it does become very relevant. Tied in with this, and so let me make it clear. We heard yesterday some snide comment about, well, we have the best witnesses that money could buy or something like that in this case. Consider Dr. Henry Lee. By all accounts, the #1 criminalist in America, probably in the world.
Until just recently when he got into a little bit of trouble.
He didn't take any money. The money,
a little bit of evidentiary trouble last year.
That OJ Simpson had to pay went to the state of Connecticut to help the police and police funds. You heard that testimony. So it's a real, unfortunate thing when lawyers stand here and demean people with national wonderful reputations who come in here who get compensated only for their time. The only ones not being compensated for their time here are you, and we apologize for that.
$5 a day.
But these other witnesses, the law allows them to be paid for their time out of their offices. You heard that.
The jury
Doing this
got
to make money.
$5 a day for
Subjected to this.
9 months in a
Be
hotel
on
room.
television every day, have people probing into your private lives. Nobody wants that. It's not any fun for any of these people.
Some of them sold a book after.
It's
You know,
certainly not right.
they made a
Stand
little
here
money.
and say things like that. And those aren't the facts at all, as you know them. Earlier, I
Sade
said that
is
there'd
still
been
smoking hot.
an offer that doctors Lee and Batten
Exactly.
and Wolf would assist the prosecution. Not accepted, but they were out here, at least to the extent they were allowed to do things. You'll hear more about the testimony of Henry Lee on that. You remember how they rushed him to this thing when he came back from Seattle and how he was treated. That was the only time he seemed to be a little bit upset. He rushed back here from Seattle and how they treated him. This Los Angeles Police Department, that's how they treated the #1 criminals in the world in their search for truth. Then Detective Lang. Lang's different than these other detectives and things. You saw Lang for about 7 or 8 days. Lang is different. He made mistakes. He has misstatements, as you're going to see, but he was different. Remember that one day, and I'll tell you how you can characterize and understand he's different. It's very interesting. He's been on the stand for 7 or 8 days. One day he came in and he was a little different. He was a little more testy, it seemed. And I asked him, I
His little
Detective
testes.
Lang, there's an article in the
You beat
paper
me to
today.
it.
Ha ha.
That's part of the evidence.
Well, it's in the record.
Look, there's an article in the paper today where Mr. Darden says that you're being too nice and answering my questions. Are you going to be tougher now? You know about that, don't you? I said, no, Mr. Cochran, I'm just going to tell you the way it is, regardless. And no matter how you ask this man a question or what anybody would want him to say, he seemed to try and answer it as best he could. Now,
Good cop.
we don't always agree with everything he did, but it was refreshing to have somebody like that. Wasn't going to be told by these prosecutors, anybody else, what to say or what to do.
It's
Even
refreshing
when he's
they had a good
criticized
cop.
in the paper. That was
They
Lang.
don't usually have those.
But I said I didn't always agree with him because I asked him, I said, when Risky said about that melting ice cream, now we're not Henry Lee, I mean, not by a long shot, but it seemed to me that if there were ice cream that was still melting or partially melted at 12:40 when Risky saw it, and that's Risky's testimony, partially melted ice cream at 12:40 that they don't bother picking up. And that ice cream, remember when you were at Bundy? That ice cream is when you go down those steps and it's on that little banister there as you're going out into the garage. Might mean that Nicole Brown Simpson went down there and was letting somebody out who'd been there earlier that evening. We'll never know. When they saw all those candles lit around the bathtub and water in the bathtub, we'll never know because they didn't bother checking. They were too worried about how they would look, notifying them, worrying about the press. We'll never know. They said the ice cream wasn't important, but it was important enough that they had, this is the evidence, they had an ice cream melting test. Remember, I asked Lang about this again. Lang's experiment showed that this ice cream went back to Ben and Jerry's. It was Ben and Jerry's ice cream, remember that? It melted in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Should be totally melted by that time frame. If you extrapolate backwards, if Risky finds the ice cream at 12:40 and is partially melted, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, but let's say it's all melted. If you went back 1 hour and 15 minutes, that's 11:25. Now, if the children are asleep, Nicole's the one eating that ice cream.
Or
That's
Ron.
actually
Seems
important.
to us. Maybe not to them. That seems important. That's another bit of evidence. When you cannot, because of negligence and incompetence, determine the cause of death, you have to look at other things. Isn't that
What am I
reasonable?
messing with the ice cream? I don't understand.
Those are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. That's what happened.
On a banister in Nicole Brown Simpson's house, there was partially melted ice cream. And they found that at, what was it 12:30 or whatever he just said? And they determined it took, 1 hour and 15 minutes to melt. So if you go back and say after 11:30, she would have had to put that ice cream there, but they're putting the time of the murder around 10:30. So he's saying she couldn't have been murdered until at least 11:20, 11:30, because the ice cream that she put on the banister wasn't melted by the time the cops found it.
Unless the murderer ate the ice cream.
Could have been. This murderin's hard work. I hope they got some Ben and Jerry's in the freezer.
I would want a snack after all that hacking and decapitating and stabbing. It would have been hard to do. Ice cream's refreshing. It's got the calories. It'll definitely replenish you.
They happen to have a container of Ben and Jerry's Murderlicious on hand.
Oh, Ben and Jerry's would never. They're peace
They
lovers.
tell you it's not important. We think that is important. Another factor. You remember that photograph in the kitchen where there's a butcher knife on the table and you see some flowers there? Seems to me that when they came home, that butcher knife was used to cut whatever was off the flowers. If it was a string or some rubber band, place those flowers in a vase or whatever in that kitchen. You look at those photographs when you get a chance. And I'm always intrigued about the things they didn't do in this case, even risky. Who said, and it was candor was refreshing. Have you had any training at crime scenes? He said, well, they kind of glossed over that at the academy. Remember he said that? People could have fallen over when he said that.
Oh,
they
you know
glossed
it.
over
Maybe it's
training at
forensic
crime
training.
scenes at the academy. And boy, was that ever more true.
It's Murderlicious.
First officer on the scene told us that. We knew that right early on, didn't we? It's not anything we made up. It's not about being anti-police. You saw the police you could believe, and you now know the ones you can't believe. And anybody who believes that all police are perfect, that they don't lie, that they don't have the same biases and racism that the rest of society has, is living in a dream world. So this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the timid. As I said, this is for the courageous who understand what the Constitution is all
He
about.
is such a good speaker.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, he is.
And so
and he knows who he's talking to.
let's look at
He knows his audience.
risky at the very outset. In addition, he
He's been
doesn't get any
watching them
training.
for
When he
months.
goes in the house and the first thing he does, he picks up the phone and uses it. I said, well, didn't you think that might mar some fingerprints? Or if it had one of those numbers where you could get the last number
It
called?
brought the
wouldn't that be
murderer to
in
the
court?
yard.
Did you think about that? Well, he didn't think about that. Did you think about the fact that, that you shouldn't be touching that phone and you have a rover? You have some on your hip, some way to call. You could have used those portable phones that Phillips had with all those private numbers on them.
Them
Could have done all those
newfangled
things,
portable
but you
phone
didn't use any of
things.
those things. You walked in there and then you didn't notice that on that phone in the kitchen, when they're looking so hard for Mr. Simpson, that there's a speed dialer that you press a button and it says dad, and it says Nana, and it says all the people. If they'd wanted to notify the next of kin, when they press the button, they could have called Nana. But not these investigators. They
Nana?
didn't think about doing that. They're too busy hatching a plan, standing around in the street, doing nothing from 2 till 4:30. These are the facts. This is what you heard. This is this case, the so-called trial of the century. This is how they conducted themselves. And then we come to those socks. Those socks.
Strawberry's
They just
dead.
don't fit. They just don't fit.
Say
They
it.
just don't fit.
Say it.
Watch with me now on the video.
Oh, the socks didn't
I want you
fit.
to watch the time counter. In
I
this
didn't know
time
about this
frame,
part.
and you'll
If the socks
understand
don't fit.
how important this is.
What's this I hear about you not giving Strawberry her water bottle to crunch on? For shame, Jeff. Megan told me all about that last night on the Infinity stream.
Now, where it says
I didn't see it.
3:13 p.m., Mr. Willie Ford says,
Better let her play with it.
all right, back it up, please. This is Mr. Willie Ford going up into the bedroom. It's 3:13, which he says is 4:13 because it hadn't been changed. This is 4:13 p.m. on June 13th, 1994. Okay, thank you, Howard. You look at the foot of the bed there.
Who the hell
Where
has
the
a
socks are supposed to be.
fireplace in Los Angeles? What's
You
that
see
shit?
no socks. in
That's
this
just
video.
Most
pretentious.
decorative.
And you'll
We don't have
recall that
basements either.
Mr. Willie Ford testified
Yeah.
about this. And I
That's
asked
just
him,
pretentious
where,
shit
Where
there.
are the socks, Mr.
To not have a
Ford?
basement or to have a fireplace?
I didn't
Both.
see any socks.
No.
Jeff, it's freezing. It got
I
like
know.
So now
42
that's interesting,
degrees
isn't it?
overnight. It was so cold.
4:13 on June 13th, 1994, these socks they supposedly recovered. These mysterious socks. These socks that no one sees any blood on until August 4th, all of a sudden. These socks that are picked up, that Looper says he picks them up because they just look out of place. I don't have any reason to pick them up. I'll just take these socks. They're out of place.
Weren't they
The
black?
only items that they took
Socks?
out of that place on that day
How can
is
you
Lang.
see
Lang
blood on
takes
black socks?
the Reebok tennis shoes, the ones he takes home. You remember that? That's all they really take because they don't come back on the 28th before they get that one brown glove. But these socks will be their undoing. It just doesn't fit. So none of you can deny there are no socks at the foot of that bed at 4:13 p.m.
Duncan,
Well,
Idaho, with the
then are the
$5.
socks?
Great interview with
Where are
Greg
the
yesterday,
socks? It's
Jeff.
an
Also, I
important
was
piece of
stoked to hear
evidence.
him say the
Well,
verdict
let me
was his
show you
favorite
something.
trial movie. Great movie.
This board here
That
was
closing
a board
argument
used
is
by Dr.
great.
Henry Lee.
It is. Thank you so
This is
much.
interesting. Bear with me for a moment as you
Mine
look
is
at
12
this.
Angry Men.
52. Thank you.
And we're now $90 away from Doggo Camp.
In
Save
this
your cash for
photograph
the
here,
Fuck It Friday
The one
Griftathon.
on the left, Your Honor.
Do homes in LA have furnaces? What's a furnace?
You notice something. The socks are at the foot of the bed.
No, really, I don't know.
If you look close at this photograph, you'll see
Like you
it.
turn your heat
There's no
on and
little
make the
white
house
card
warm
there.
in the
You
winter.
notice how they
I don't
put
even
these
have a
little
heater.
evidence cards there when they're going to collect something.
I'm
There's
serious.
your answer,
card.
people.
We
On
don't have
this
heaters.
Photograph here.
I
This
just put
is
on
interesting
Uggs. Those
because
are my
you
heaters.
see these straps on the bed. Now, Looper told us when he testified,
Mr. Looper.
these straps
No, Mr. Hooper.
were like, he called them some kind of luggage straps.
Little Sesame Street reference
These
there.
luggage straps are down at this point, aren't they? See how they're down? And no evidence card. The socks are there. And we come over to this photograph here.
Heat.
You notice how the strap is now up on the bed.
LA
It's no
people are
longer hanging
different.
down anymore.
Yeah, we just
Been
turned the
moved up,
oven on and it
And
warms the
Looper
whole
says
place.
that's when he looks under this
It's
bed
like
and
asking
he
an
sees
Eskimo
that
what an air
photograph.
conditioner is. They
By the
just
way,
don't know.
Yeah,
How wrong can they
exactly.
continue to be? That's no wedding photograph. That's a photograph they took at some formal event. You look at that photograph and see. That's how they speculate, and most times they've been wrong. But this is interesting. The strap is now up on the bed. And you look at the socks. Now it's been posed for you. Here's this number 13 out here with these socks. Now,
California too good
look
for
back at
winter.
that video.
I don't
and you'll
control
have
the
it.
weather.
You'll notice that the video
It's just
has
that temperature here.
is strapped down. So the video is at a time before this card is placed, before the strap is up, before this is about to be collected. Now, isn't that strange? Because at 4:13, there are no socks there. Now, how do we tie all this together?
Did Jews
You
control the
remember,
weather?
Fung and Mazzola have a log. And on their log,
Put another log
tell
on the
when they
fire.
collected things.
Cook me up some bacon
They
and some
tell us
beans.
that they collected the blood in the foyer at 4:30. That they then come upstairs. That they collect. Here it is as we speak. Got to move it over a little bit, Mr. Harris, I think. Do we?
The OJ Simpson Sock Emporium.
Now you see this. Where they collected things sequentially, and they kept this log. And I think that you'll remember the testimony that
Yeah.
at 4:30, they collected the blood in the foyer. Remember that? Let me see if I can point that out for us. In foyer, red stain. And there's testimony. They testified at 4:30. 16:30 is 4:30. This is at least 17 minutes after Mr. Ford's up there with that camera where there are no socks, right? So 16:30, right there. They're downstairs. Then they say they go upstairs. They leave this time blank, but at 16:40, they go and they look at this little red spot in the bathroom. Remember that? And they say in their testimony that the socks are collected between 16:30 and 16:40. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. 16:35.
Okay.
How could the socks be there at 4:35 when you just saw they're not there at 4:13?
No.
Who's fooling whom here?
Whom's fooling whom?
Setting this man up, and you can see it with your own eyes. You're not naive. Nobody's foolish here. And then they forget about this little strap exercise. When they're posing stuff here, they
I like to
move this
exercise
off
with
the
the
bed,
strap.
move this under the bed. They're gonna make a big
Wait,
thing
what?
about this photograph under the bed.
Jazzercise? Buns of steel.
And then they put this number down here and they take these
Thigh
pictures
master.
for you later. But they
Rip
didn't
Suzanne
know
Summers.
Honestly,
that we
though, the
would
Thigh
know
Master, such
or
a game
find out
changer.
about Mr. Ford's video. See, they took that video. You know, we talked about this early on. LAPD should always
Of course,
take
I've heard.
videos of everything at that crime scene. They don't do that. But they took this video, not because they wanted to help Mr. Simpson. If anything was missing or got broken, this was a civil liability video. Remember, they was going around taking photographs of things that might be missing or whatever. If there was ever a suit later on. But they got hoisted by their own petard again because the video has the counter and the number They will never, ever be able to explain that to you because we got the testimony in black and white as to when they went upstairs and collected this. Those socks from the beginning have been a thorn. It's going to bring them down.
Never hoist your own
Those are
petard.
the
That's just
socks.
petarded.
These socks. No dirt, no soil, no berries, no trace. Nobody sees any blood until August 4th. And all these miraculous things start happening. And then Mr. Sheck will talk more about this. Then we find out it has EDTA in it. It's a planet along with that back gate. How would it be on there?
The gate?
Why didn't they see the blood before that? There's a big fight here. Where's the dirt? Why would Mr. Simpson have on these kind of socks with a sweat outfit? Wait a minute. Now, you don't have to be like from the fashion police to know that. You don't wear those kind of socks. You wear those kind of socks with a suit. You don't wear those kind of socks with a sweat outfit.
Unless you're from Europe.
Doesn't make sense to you that those socks were in that hamper from Saturday night when Mr. Simpson went to that formal event. Those kind of socks is what you wear with your tuxedo when he was dressed with those other ladies.
It's got a good argument there.
Took it out of the hamper and staged it there. Then you see what happened.
It's a stupid argument.
Is that not reasonable?
Well, it wasn't there when they did one check, and then it's there 20 minutes later.
Oh, that aspect is not stupid. No, I'm just saying you can wear dress socks with an informal outfit. I have done it before. I'm a very improper woman.
Well, see, it's reasonable to assume that if it's not there, they took it out of the hamper and planted it there, particularly in light of all the other planting of evidence that went on in this trial.
Oh, no, they planted shit. They definitely planted things.
So it's not a stupid argument then, right?
I was just saying you could wear those kind of socks with a sweatsuit. Easily.
You can. But you can also wear them with a tuxedo and put them in a hamper. It's reasonable doubt. We're creating reasonable doubt. It's a reasonable explanation that goes against the prosecution's explanation.
I know.
I find that more reasonable than the prosecution's explanation that it just sort of magically appeared or someone missed it the first time they went through the house.
Just people wear weird mismatched socks all the time with outfits that they're not appropriate for. Nobody's going to see your feet. That's all I was saying. The other aspects, though, they make sense. Yes, no, LAPD definitely planted those socks.
So it's a perfectly good argument then.
Yes.
That's what you meant to say.
Yes, just, I'm just saying, I would believe that OJ Simpson would wear a weird pair of socks one day. That's not unreasonable. If that was the only argument, if that was the only reason that he was bringing it up. No, Johnnie Cochran's better than that. He has the better argument. He's better than Chris Darden. It's obvious.
Are these facts? I think you'll agree it is. It's the only reasonable explanation is posed there. And the reason for doing this is because they were out of place. But isn't that interesting? In the hamper in which Looper went and they all went, they didn't take anything else. You think the police would ask, Mr. Simpson, what were you wearing in addition to suits? What were you wearing that night? They didn't take one thing. Yet we hear all of this talk about, wonder where the clothes went. You think Mr. Simpson, who told them everything, who cooperated with them fully, told them like he told them about those shoes, what he was wearing. They didn't bother collecting those, did they? No towels, no nothing. She's worried about him taking this quick shower.
It's like the old Stephen Wright joke.
There's so much blood.
I measure my socks by thickness.
Why didn't they bring the towels in here? Something is wrong in this case.
Just like Denmark.
It just doesn't fit.
Say it.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. So the socks, I could talk about these socks forever, but I'm not going to because Mr. Sheck will talk about the forensic aspect of it. But let me just remind you of two quick more things. Dr. Herb McDonald came in here and he told you there was no splatter or spatter on these socks. These socks had compression transfer. And he used his hands to show you somebody took those socks and they put something on them. And it went all the way through to side 3. Now, with all their experts, bring people back 3 and 4 times, they never had anybody to contravene that. How'd that get over to side 3? How'd it get over there? It wouldn't get there if there was a leg in the sock. Can anybody explain that? Any of you explain that? Maybe Ms. Clark can explain that. The experts can't explain it. Something is wrong.
The blood stain went all the way through his leg.
Which indicates the anticoagulant from a purple top tube That's where that blood is from. The socks, as you know, is something that one can get emotional about because we've known about these socks for some time. This is
Toe socks are a huge
say the
thing here
least,
in the hot,
disturbing.
humid Korean summers because you got to keep
It's
them
worse than
separated.
that, though. In my opening statement, I
get
told
moldy
you
toes.
about evidence that would be compromised, contaminated, and corrupted. And I told you something then. I said in...
Okay, no, the Willie Bot says socks go on, socks go off. You can't explain that. No, what he's saying is there was blood on side 3 of the socks. When he's wearing the socks, he gets blood on them. There's the outside of one side, then the inside of that same side, and then the other side of the sock had blood on it. So it wasn't just on one side of the sock. It had gotten on the other side of the sock.
Which meant there couldn't have been a foot in it when the blood got on it?
Yes, that's it. That's what he's saying.
Because the blood bled through
Yes,
from one side to the
3.
other.
Yes. Socks on, socks off, the soccer.
In this case, there's something even far more sinister. The socks are one example of that.
Never thought of
Now,
socks
if you
as
want to
sinister
be
before.
fair, decide in this case, you got to deal with these socks. You'll get a chance to see them. Look for the dirt that you expect on them.
Oh boy,
Look for the
can't wait to see
spatter
the
that you
socks.
expect on them. Look and see why it went over to side 3. There's a leg in it. And, you know, isn't it interesting how you get this blood on this sock with your pants? Your pants have to be almost up. This would take a real contortion to do it. There's no way they can explain it. So let's just leave it where it is, and Mr. Sheck will pick up on that. And then we've heard a lot about the so-called blood in the Bronco. And I want to tell you, I'm not anything like a scientist. In fact, when my mother and my father wanted me to become doctors,
So-called.
I didn't, because I wasn't that good in science. So I became a lawyer so I could talk. But let me tell you something. Even I
These
know
scientists have to do
it
math.
too.
about amounts of blood, especially after this case. They tell you about all this blood in the Bronco. And you remember one of the early witnesses testified the total amount of blood on this console is 0.07 of a drop of blood. Now that's supposedly a mixture of Goldman and someone else. So now this
Just
is,
for the
I'm gonna do a
legal
little
limit.
Henry Lee experiment, and I hope that it doesn't cause you any problems. Now, 0.07 of a drop.
Douglas, you're going to have to take this down.
That is your young. 0.07 of a drop. Not even that much.
So it was less than a drop of
The amount,
blood.
the testimony in this case is of the alleged blood on that console.
Alleged?
Now, this is an amazing thing, because you remember this is the vehicle in tradition of everything else they did in this case that's picked up. It's towed away from Rockingham. You've all seen that photograph. It's
Roslyn.
taken over, and ultimately it ends up at Vertel's. Remember Blazzini, William Blazzini.
$6 million.
Before we got
American
to Blazzini,
Dreamer.
we dealt with John Mraz.
His bill was
Mraz
$6
said
million.
The vehicle was just open.
The
He was
Los
waiting to get in
Angeles
it.
County
The
bill
press
was
waiting for
$9
him.
million.
He even drove it back. Everybody knew this was OJ Simpson's vehicle, and they were
Yeah, we
all
really
looking
aged on
at
that
it.
one.
Supposedly for all this blood that's supposed to be in here. This killer must have been covered in blood. And they say he drove this Bronco and he got in the, it'd be covered with blood, wouldn't it? So everybody's looking for the blood. So Mraz said he gets inside the car. He didn't see any blood. Mraz said that. They maligned Mraz because Mraz said, yeah, I did take those receipts out of there that had, one had Mr. Simpson's name on it, one had Mrs. Simpson's name on it. But he said he didn't see any blood in there. They never called anybody to contravene that. But we want to make sure you understood what was happening. So we called William Blazzini, the man who works for Pick Your Part as far as vehicles. And he was a pretty good witness, wasn't he? He said, look, this is my business, is looking in cars because I go in and buy them. He says, I got in that car on June 21st. And first of all, I said, I went looking for blood because I'd heard in the news there's gonna be lots of blood in this car. So I went and got in the Bronco. It was not secured as usual. Bob Jones said, oh, there it is over there. Go get in it. This is the same vehicle. No holes on it. Could be released to Hertz. LAPD at work. He gets in the car on the driver's side where he stays almost 5 minutes, looking down, looking for blood, looking in the front. Remember, he takes his fingerprints or hands and puts them in the mirrors, kind of like a souvenir, in the right front window of the car. Doesn't see any blood. He looks all over for blood. Then he gets out, walks around, and I guess on the rear panel, says, I'll leave him again. Puts his fingerprints there again. And he walks around, looks inside the driver's side, looks back, looks all down on the console, looking for blood. He's looking for blood, ladies and gentlemen. On June 21st, doesn't see any blood. Then he gets in the car. I ask him, did you look on the dash? Did you look on the door? Did you look on the console? Doesn't see any blood. He says that the patch on the bottom was cut out, the floor mat there. Doesn't see any blood. And Miss Clark cross-examined this man. He said, look, Bronco's kind of high up. When I was getting ready to get in there, I rested my hands on the thing, and I looked right up there, and there was no blood in that Bronco. Now, this is very strange, isn't it? Here's the Bronco that has blood that appears, disappears, and then reappears, and then disappears. This is a vehicle that's supposed to be secure, but it's not secure. Everybody gets in it. Mirage got in it, takes stuff out that could have been helpful. We know that there was a receipt in there from Nicole Brown Simpson. There's testimony. She rides
looking for blood in all the wrong places.
That's forever
looking
lost
for
to us because they
blood in
didn't do their
too
jobs
many
again.
faces.
Blazzini comes along.
Trying to.
There's no blood in there. How do you explain all this when they talk about, they stand up here and talk about an ocean of evidence and, I mean, as I said, is a little tiny trickle of a stream, if anything. They're just words that they use. So this Bronco is particularly troubling. Less than that, 7/10 of that drop of blood is what's in that ledge console. Dr. Batten says the perpetrator would be covered with blood. Your common sense tells you the perpetrator would be covered with blood. A 5 to 15 minute battle and struggle of this dimensions. And so it just doesn't fit. Something is wrong. How does anyone drive away in that car with bloody clothes, with no blood there on the seats?
Yes,
no
Porcelain
blood
Thunder,
anyplace
there
else?
was. There was also rain on the Scarecrow and
Every
blood on
police
the
officer
plow.
came in, talked about how bloody this scene was. It doesn't make any sense. You can't explain it because Mr. Simpson was not in that car and didn't participate in these murders. That's the reasonable and logical explanation. None other will do. And it's too late for them to change now with these kind of shifting theories. So the prosecution then has no shoes, no weapon.
No shoes, no shirt, no
clothes.
service.
They don't have anything except these socks, which appear all of a sudden under these circumstances.
It's an illusion.
Now, when you want to think about the depths to which people will go to try to win, when you want to talk about an obsession to win, I'm going to give you an example. There was a witness in this case named Thano Paradas. This is a man who's their man who took OJ Simpson's blood. This is a man who had a subpoena at one point, said he could have come down there and testified. They didn't call him. So by the time we wanted to call him, he's unavailable because of his heart problem, remember? So what we did was we read you his grand jury testimony, I believe, and we played for you his preliminary hearing testimony. And in that testimony, he was very, very consistent. Been a nurse for a number of years. You saw him. Works for the city of Los Angeles. Says that when he took this blood from OJ Simpson on June 13th, he took between 7.9 and 8.1
This is
cc's of
important.
blood. That's what he said. That's real simple, isn't it? We knew that. It's sworn.
Sworn testimony, the guy that took OJ's blood between 7.9 and 8.1
Tell the truth
milliliters.
under oath, both places, grand jury and preliminary hearing. Pretty clear, isn't it? Pretty clear. Except you remember that in my opening statement, I told you, I said, you know, something's wrong here. Something sinister is here. Something is wrong. Because if we take all their figures and assume they took 8 cc's of blood. There's 6.5 cc's accounted for. There is 1.5 cc's missing of this blood. There's some missing blood in this case. Where is it?
On the socks, on the back gate.
Prosecution wants to explain that for you too, make everything real easy for you.
In the car.
So what do they do? What do they do? We've been talking about the police here before, but what do they do? Hank Goldberg doesn't give us any notice. Goes out there with the video camera with Oppler and this other lady, Miss Ramirez. And they take this bizarre home video of Paratus sitting there talking and mouthing words. It's the most bizarre thing. I mean, as jurors, I'm sure you've seen some pretty high quality testimony here, but this was bizarre. He's sitting there talking about, well, you know, gee, I don't really remember how much I took, and he's going through all these gyrations. It was sad. The depths to which they had sunk to try, as part of this cover-up, to try and convince you that this man hadn't taken 8 cc's of blood. And at the very end of this case, we put in a syringe for you, the kind of syringe they use.
Chandler.
And this syringe, is interesting enough,
What?
has markers on it.
You're funny.
Not only, this wasn't a guessing game. It has 8 cc's right on it.
Being totally
Because the 10
serious. That's
cc
exactly how I
syringe.
got those effects.
So he knew what was taken. But that's the depths
It is
to
funny,
which
though.
they will go to try to make it fit. And it just doesn't fit.
I know how
That's what they'll
do.
do. You have to watch them. This is a classic example. You saw it with your own eyes. You heard the testimony. Need I say more? Is that a classic example? And then there's another concrete example. Let's take Miss Laura McKinney. By all accounts, a nice and gentle lady who didn't want to be here. You heard the testimony. I had to go all the way to North Carolina to try to get these tapes. I had to go all the way to the North Carolina Court of Appeals to get these tapes. She comes here. She has proof by what she says. You know, there's conversations and there's conversations, but she has the conversations on tape. These prosecutors, if you don't fit, you're going to have trouble. So much so that Mr. Darden is questioning her. Remember her famous response? Quote, "Why are we having this adversarial conversation? Why do I detect this negativity? I'm just here to tell the truth. Aren't you in a search for truth, Mr. Prosecutor?"
Oof.
She said that. And then they wanted to ask, well, why didn't you
That's
stop
what she
him from
said.
using this so-called N-word? She said,
You don't fit, you
"I
might
was
want
in
to try a
journalistic
different position.
mode. I didn't try to stop him from using that word any more than I tried to stop him from talking about color."
And see, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that haven't heard the story that I've told 6,000 times, this trial is what gave birth to the word N-word. Because Mark Furman was dropping N-bombs with hard R's so often in this case. And F. Lee Bailey was doing it as well. That Christopher Darden got upset and refused to actually say the word. So Chris Darden started calling it the N-word. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the birth of a word. So,
Or the
every time-
substitution for one.
yeah, every time you say the N-word, you can thank Christopher Darden for that.
You can also thank for the race card. There's
The
that.
race card, yeah. The race card's coming up here in a bit, yeah.
Mm.
Maybe not this week, but it'll come up. He also coined the race card. Right, there we go. That's the birth of some phrases right there.
Cover-ups where male police officers have no respect for women police officers because they don't cover up the misdeeds. But that was her testimony. From that witness stand, you saw her. She's credible, don't you think? She has tapes to back her up. But look how she was treated by this. And Mr. Darden said something very interesting today. He said, "I'm just the messenger." Now, how many times have you heard that? I'm the messenger. Don't blame me. I'm just doing my job. That's no way out. He's a fine lawyer, but he can't hide behind just being the messenger. Well, whose message is he sending? Who is he representing in this message? He's a man of integrity. That statement is not going to fly I'm just the messenger. He's not any messenger. He's the prosecutor with all the power of the state of California in this case. We're not going to let that get away. They're not going to turn the Constitution on its head in this case. We're not going to allow it. And so now let me bring you to a segment of this discussion where we talk about if you can't trust the messengers, watch out for their message. Van Adder, the man who carries the blood. Furman,
This
the
man is
who
Van
finds the glove.
Adder.
Remember those two phrases. Van Adder, the man who carries the blood. Furman, the man who found the glove. Now, Detective Van Adder has been a police officer for 27, 28 years, an experienced LAPD robbery homicide man. He was put on this case because of his experience, presumably, because they had the resources downtown. You know what time he got there and knew what happened. One of the things that has been totally unexplainable to me is the fact that here you have Mr. Simpson cooperating fully, gives his blood. He gives 8 cc's of blood, we now know. Van Adder, the blood is then turned over to Van Adder. Now, we know that he could have booked that blood in Parker Center, or he could have gone over to Piper Tech. You see these two residents here. Thank you, Mr. Douglas. And Your Honor, this is, okay, this is just the board. Apparently, there's not a number on this. He's at Parker Center, right over here in the police building, right down here at 150 North Los Angeles Street. Takes this blood. Could have gone a couple of floors and booked the blood. Their manual requires. But he didn't do that, did he? Could have gone over to Piper Tech, another facility right downtown here, and booked that blood. This is the reference sample of Mr. OJ Simpson. He didn't do that.
I missed Island's member for 4 months chat a bit ago. I apologize for that, Island. People in chat making me feel old. Looking back, it's fascinating how the Bronco chase made him seem guilty at the time. Thanks for saying my name correctly. You're welcome.
That's a really pretty name. I don't think I've met another Island before.
She's one of a kind.
Well, we're very fond of you.
Let's go.
What he does is he goes way out to this area marked Brentwood Heights. Must be 20, 25 miles, 20-some miles to go way out there, carrying the blood in this unsealed gray envelope, supposedly. Why is he doing that? Why is Van Adder carrying Mr. Simpson's blood out there? Why is he doing that? Doesn't make any sense. Violates their own rules. Why is he doing that in this case? Has he ever done it in the other case? No. Name another case where this has happened. Or you can ask him those questions all the time.
Jeffrey Gibbon, you read that book.
When have you ever sent 4 people, 4 detectives over to notify somebody who's not even the next of kin? Well, Mr. Cochran, there must be somebody, but I can't name you a case. There are no cases. These are the things they did in this case. So he goes way out there with that blood. Why did he do that? Doesn't make any sense. And so we know because much of what happened here is on video. It's the strangest thing about this blood. He can't explain either why he carries it out there. And then it gets even stranger, doesn't it? Because supposedly, after the blood is carried out to O.J. Simpson's residence, Van Adder gives the blood to Fung, according to what we hear.
And what did Fung do with it? He funged it up.
Then uses some kind of a trash bag, a black trash bag, and gives it to Mazzola, but he doesn't tell her that it's blood. Isn't that bizarre? You remember the video when Mazzola's walking along, carrying it, almost bumping into the hedges and the shrubbery?
Yeah, then she falls asleep on the couch with it, doesn't she?
She doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
And then, talk about cover-ups, Mazzola is asked, well, did you see
Here
when
we go.
Van Adder gave the blood to Fung? And she says, no, I had sat down on the couch and I was closing my eyes in Mr. Simpson's couch at that moment.
Like I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sound like a cover-up to you? Always looking the other way, not looking, don't want to be involved, covering for somebody? It's bizarre.
Well, she did look like a
Absolutely
sleepy bitch,
bizarre, and
but
it's
you know.
untrue. It doesn't fit. So Van Atter, the man who carries the blood, starts lying in this case from the very, very beginning, trying to cover up for this rush to judgment.
You think Van Atter
Those are
led?
words. That's rhetoric. Let me prove it for you.
Well, he's going to prove
He
it for us
tells
right
us,
All right.
and this is a board. The board's entitled Van Atter's Big Lies. The man who carried
Okay.
the blood.
Let's take a look.
He tells us
That's
that
how I thought it
OJ
was
Simpson
spelled.
is not a suspect. That's the biggest lie we've heard probably in this entire trial. OJ Simpson is not a suspect. They handcuff him within 30 to 45 seconds of the time he gets back here. He lies about that. Weitzman succeeds in getting him unhandcuffed, and they take him downtown.
Wait, why do they spell his
He
name
does
two
more
different
than
ways?
that. Not only does he lie about that at the beginning,
because
He
they didn't
then
have spell correct on,
feels
on
comfortable
boards.
enough
I don't know.
Does it have one T or two
talk to
T's?
these two brothers, the Fiato brothers, and an FBI agent named Wax. And isn't this bizarre that the lead detective in this case, put on here because of his experience, is talking with these two guys who've been in this witness program for quite a while, testifying for the government. Now, we know that in a rather unusual set of circumstances, they're in a room somewhere in some hotel drinking beer. It's not even Van Atter's case. And they're sitting around talking. And I asked the FBI agent, weren't you a little surprised that a detective would be talking to these two people about the Simpson case? Well, we found out that there was a relationship allegedly between Denise Brown and one of these brothers, and maybe he felt comfortable. But why would he do that? And what does he say?
It's juicy gossip. It's hot tea.
He tells them that we didn't go up there to save any lives. OJ Simpson was a suspect. The husband is always the suspect. But then he comes into court here, this lead detective takes the stand again and lies to you under oath. Says, oh, well, no, I never said that. Never said that. That'd be a mistake if they said that. I never made that statement. He lied.
Because it's
He lied from
unprofessional.
the very beginning. He lied when they went over there. Then they bring in Commander Bushy, an otherwise good man. They get him involved in this. Let me tell you something interesting about what you heard about Phillips's voice. Phillips was talking to the coroner's office about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning on June 13th. The man asked him to identify, well, yes, we have one male, female, one white female, one white male, as though he didn't know the names or whatever. Now, this is 5.5 hours after Bushy said, go over and notify OJ Simpson, who's not even the next of kin, because we don't want the family to find out about this like they did in the Belushi case. Remember he said that? Now, he's doing all this from his house, from his home.
Rip John Belushi.
Phillips, if you look through his testimony, look back through your notes as to when he says he knows who this person is. But isn't it amazing?
Nonstop Mom dropping the
the
99-cent
They're
super
at her
sticker.
house.
Thank you so
They got a
much,
phone with a speed
Nonstop
dial.
Mom.
They know. Bushy knows. They don't follow his orders out. They stand out in the street, not investigating, stand out in the street, planning, doing whatever they're going to do. But one thing they do, they decide that OJ Simpson is a suspect in this case.
Dun, dun, dun.
And let me tell you why you're going to know that. They want to talk a lot about 1985, but he missed the whole point. In 1985, something interesting happened in this case. In 1985, Mark Furman responded to a call on Rockingham. Mark Furman is a lying, perjuring, genocidal racist.
True.
And from that moment on, anytime he could get OJ Simpson, he would do it. That's when it started.
Isn't that horrible? They can't even object to that. They can't even counter that argument. They've admitted that.
They said
Isn't
it
that a
themselves in their own closing because they were so embarrassed. I mean, they chose to put him on the stand. So, you know.
I mean, that's just horrible. They can't even argue against him being a racist, horrible, genocidal, et cetera, cop.
Bigot. No, the saddest part is that was really generous of Johnnie Cochran. He could have called him a number of way worse names that would have been completely accurate. He could have called him,
Yeah.
well, all the stuff I can't say on YouTube, but the people that went after my people. I mean, collected World War II memorabilia, you know, that kind of thing.
85.
Yeah.
When Farrell asked all the officers at West LA, or 10 of them, you know anything about this residence? Only one steps forward. And what does he say? It's indelibly impressed in my mind. That call back in 85, 4 years later, sits down and writes a report. And now, he knew what he was going to do on this particular night. So,
I don't believe
OJ not a suspect, went to save lives.
it's a good.
He wanted to get a search warrant. That's why they were lying. Denies the statement to Wax and Fiato. Then, to get that search warrant, he
Nicholas.
lies to a judge.
True.
He says in the search warrant that OJ left unexpectedly from Chicago. And there's some writing on the search warrant. I think it's in evidence. And it's kind of interesting because
Hey, Sal, what's up?
everybody knew. Cato knew he was going to Chicago. Everybody knew he was going to Chicago. It wasn't any unexpected trip, but I suppose it would help out. In fact, if you think about it, Ms. Clark said this. Well, that's why those socks were out there and everything, because he left in a hurry. Like he had one pair of socks. You know why those socks were out there. He left unexpectedly to try and justify what they were doing. It all comes back to Furman when he says in that letter, if I see an interracial couple, I'll stop them. If I don't have a reason, I'll make up a reason. This man thinks he's above the law.
Furman killed
Even
them.
Darden, Mr. Darden, Mr. Christopher Darden. my
Possible,
friend,
Jesus.
admit,
Stop them.
He said it was textbook what's happened to their witness, not our witness. And so he lies to the judge. He lied to the judge. He's lied
She's
to
like,
you,
fuck.
his jurors. Then he says that Arnell and Cato said OJ left unexpectedly. That's written in the warrant. Never say anything of the kind. Cato knew this was a planned trip for Hertz. He talked to Kathy Randa. Then in the search warrant, he puts that
We have Rogue Mama here with the $2. Thank you so much for requesting proof of life for Yoda and Straubs. They're here,
Can't
but
you hear him
we're
snoring? I can hear him.
hear him. Yeah, we're so far away from Doggo Cam. It's not even worth it addressing. But great success. Well, instead of focusing on OJ Simpson and the facts, they put the police on trial. Well, that's what you do when you're creating reasonable doubt. You're saying, look, here's what the cops explained, and here's what they did. So this is why you can't believe them, and so therefore it must be reasonable doubt.
Well,
You're
can
doing
I speak from
absolutely the proper thing. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I mean, speaking from the perspective of I believe that OJ committed this crime, and I think it was absolutely necessary for them to put the police on trial because two things can be true at once. I think that they tried to help along the investigation. I think they planted a lot of evidence, and I think anybody with eyes can see that because human blood does not normally have anticoagulants in it. You don't usually have blood appearing randomly at various spots in Los Angeles after you've photographed that spot not having blood, especially when it's a closed crime scene.
And you're usually
There's just
not
a lot of
missing
things.
blood from your samples you collected.
Usually not. There were, let's just say, a lot of missteps by the police that could generously be called incompetence and more accurately be called intentional malfeasance. And
All of which can
that
be-
is why this verdict is accurate, in my opinion. I don't like it, but it's accurate.
reasonable doubt.
And he should have been acquitted. I'm sorry. He should have and he shouldn't have, but he should have.
Rosalind Duke says, "How close are we to Doggo Cam? Like $85. We're not even close. This isn't the Griftathon, so they'll make an appearance tomorrow, probably on Friday. I hope they make an appearance on fucking Friday.
it was confirmed there was human blood on the door.
Well, ladies love dogs.
That's never been tested, even to this day.
Especially white
Another
girls.
lie in this search warrant. He denies telling Thompson the order to handcuff OJ Simpson. Then he lies about OJ Simpson's blood. Remember during his testimony, he got that blood about 2:30 and he was trying to push it back an hour. So like maybe 3:30, because he had to explain, it's hard to explain those hours in there. What's he walking around with this man's blood for? for 3 hours before he goes back out to Rockingham at 5:30? What's he doing with this blood? So he has an hour in there and you look at his testimony, he lies about it, between 2:30 and 3:30. Then Furman testifies between these two. I don't know who you can believe. When Furman testifies, something about that, when he talks to Cato, Cato tells him about these thumps that he doesn't tell anybody about it. He's so central to this case. He's got to be the big man and go solve this entire case. He doesn't tell the rest of them. Remember, he goes off all by himself for 15 minutes. Just walking around, he goes off by himself somewhere, supposedly where he supposedly finds this glove. No opportunity? We'll be talking about that.
No opportunity.
But Van Adder comes in and says, well,
I was
yes,
thinking
Furman told me about the thumps on the wall.
Respect my thoughts,
Contrary
huh?
to what Furman had said. So
Thump 3 times on the wall if
are the
you
lies
want me.
of the co-lead detective in this case.
It's a secret code.
If you cannot trust the messenger, you can't trust the message that they're trying to give you. You can't trust the message. So this man who starts to lie from the very, very beginning.
Nicholas Starro Trial watches. The one time Jeff has a drinking stream I actually can be at,
lies,
he
the
chooses
things
to
he
do it
did.
ladies only. Coward.
And then they
Well,
rope
no.
in,
He
Smart.
does
Amanda
have
Bush.
long enough hair. I
try
mean,
to
he
back
could
him up
pass
by
for
saying,
a
well,
lady.
I'd ordered them to do this or directed
Yeah.
them
Although
to do
Nicholas
this.
is very masculine.
Isn't that interesting now? Let's think about this.
If you call
You
yourself
look at those laws
Nicole
see
and
how
wear
many
some
police
false
officers
titties
came
and
out to Bundy
put your
and
hair
Martin.
in braids, we'll let you
Maybe
in.
more than 30.
Well, yeah.
You think that
That'd be
I
funny.
didn't know that you had a,
Of
if you
those
identify as a
number of
woman
officers,
for an hour
that maybe
kind of
one of them,
policy.
maybe one of the patrol officers.
Who am I? Who
could
am I
give
to,
them
you
notice.
know? Who am I?
It took all 4 detectives, all 4 LAPD experienced detectives to leave the bodies. They had
Change your
notified the
pronouns for a
coroners.
minute.
They didn't have a criminalist to go over to notify OJ Simpson. Who's fooling who here? This is preposterous. They're lying. Let's try to get over that wall, to get in that house. If you don't believe so, you're talking about saving lives? Remember what Arnell said. First of all, they all make this big mistake. They forget and they say, well, when we leave from the back, we go right in that back door of the house there. We go right in the back door. But they forgot. Arnell Simpson comes in here and testifies, you can't go in the back door because remember, Cato had
It's
put on
exit
the
only.
alarm. You had to go around the house to the front. Arnell had to open the keypad to let them in. Remember?
Yeah, but sometimes you like to go.
You
in
think
the
who
back
knows
door,
better?
though.
You think she knows better or they know better? She had to open the door, let them in. They're so worried about dead bodies and people being in that house and saving lives. Who goes in first? Arnell Simpson goes in first. These big, brave police officers. And the young lady just walks on in there first. They don't go upstairs looking. They just want to be inside that house and make her leave. Or give Furman a chance to start what he's doing, strolling around the premises and doing what he's doing there. Then we come to Detective Phillips, a nice man, but even he makes misstatements in this situation. Now he knows Furman probably better than anybody because he's the one who calls Furman. He's the one who works with Furman. Now, Furman, in the culture of LAPD, has been promoted. We have heard that in '85, when he goes out to this incident, he's a patrolman.
20 minutes
Now
left,
he's
people.
a
20 minutes left.
moving up in the ranks, working with Phillips. And Phillips calls him after 1 o'clock. Furman's been somewhere down at La Quinta in the desert, and he comes back supposedly. And he gets his call to respond to this location.
In La Quinta?
And even Detective Phillips, in this case, and I examined it.
Far as fuck.
When asked, well, Furman told you, didn't he, about his going out on that call in '85 about this so-called domestic discord and then the '89 situation. You knew about that, didn't you? Phillips, oh, no, I never knew anything. Nobody told me anything. I don't know anything about that. No, I didn't. Then Lang comes in here. And in Lang and Van Adder's report,
Jessica
right
Lang.
in the report,
Murder, she wrote.
and it's in evidence,
I love Jessica
Exhibit
Lange.
10.
That was
21.
Lansbury, though. But you know.
Lang directly impeaches Phillips.
The
That Phillips
postman
did
always
tell
rings
him
twice.
about the '85 incident. The Furman had told him he'd been out on it.
We should
Why
have
would
been
you do
Jessica
that?
Lang in Murder, She Wrote. That would
Now,
have been
these are
funny.
facts,
The
ladies
joke
and
would have
gentlemen.
worked, but I
This
just made
is
it
what
work.
happened in this case before your very eyes. Not anything I'm making up. And who would know Mark Furman better in this case? His lack of credibility, his lying, racist views than Ron Phillips, his supervisor.
Oh, you're
Apparently
Angela
chose to look
Lansbury.
the other
I
way, and
really
I'm
screwed
sure
it up, didn't
he's
why
as
did I think?
embarrassed as
Oh, her
anybody
character's
else
name was
by
Jessica.
this disgrace
and
Furman.
that's what it was. And
So
Yeah, I
it's
didn't know what you were
important
talking about, but
at
it's
the
kind of
outset that
went
we
with it.
understand the role
Yeah.
of Phillips, as we need to understand the role.
yes, her character's
Van
name was Jessica. In
He was
Murder,
the
She
one
Wrote.
allegedly given this order. by Bushy to go over and give the death notification. Didn't comply with it until much later. And presumably the reason they were going to go over was to give the notice to Mr. Simpson.
That was Fay Ray.
And
Fay
Furman
Ray
was
was in the
going
original King
because he
Kong.
was needed. Now, can you imagine this?
Whatever happened to Fay Ray?
Furman, with his views, genocidal views, was going to go over to give notice to OJ Simpson to help OJ Simpson in his time of need.
Michael
Can you
Ramey
imagine
was
that?
ill the day
He's going
the
over
earth
there to help
stood
him,
still.
help him with his kids. That is
And he told us
ludicrous.
where we stand.
So from Risky,
And
Bushy.
Francis. Sorry.
you've seen and are seeing a part of this code of silence, this cover-up. The cover-up that Laura McKinney talks about, where male officers get together, cover up for each other, don't tell the truth, hide, turn their head, cover. You can't trust this evidence. You
Chandler.
can't trust the messenger. You can't
You love me.
trust the
I
message.
know. I do.
When Furman gets on the witness stand and says, I haven't used this N-word for 10 years. Think Phillips knows he's lying? Some of you probably knew he was lying.
Bitch,
Took
please.
those tapes to make those of you who didn't believe these kind of things exist to take place. Didn't he have an obligation to come forward under those circumstances? For if Furman would speak so candidly to this lady that he met in a restaurant in West LA, you think he talks like that to the guys on the force? She talked about, he said those words in police administration and police procedures. That's the way he talks. That's the way he is. Nobody came forward to reveal this. We revealed it for you. Let me just take a moment. This whole thing about the police and what they
Oh, Jessica Lange was in the World Trade Center King Kong. Okay.
Better than Naomi Watts.
Because you see, we live in
Naomi
Los Angeles and we
Watts?
love this place.
She was in the remake.
But all we want
The Jack Black one?
is a good and honest police force.
Yeah, she had her mouth
where
open the whole
people
time.
are
She looked like a
treated
trout.
fairly, no matter what part of the city they're in. That's all you want. So in talking to you about this, understand there is no personal pride.
No,
But I told
Strawberry's
you
chewing on a
when we
bone
start.
over here, not over there where she usually is.
not-
It's just noisy.
For the weak or for the faint of heart. And so let's move on. Then just wanted to show you this part from Detective Phillips. This is what was asked of Phillips at 15084. Mr. Simpson and Miss Nicole Brown Simpson had been embroiled in previous domestic discord situations, one of these resulting in Mr. Simpson having to go to court. You told them that too, didn't you? Answer, Phillips.
15 minutes.
I never told him that. He's talking about to Lang. So if, my question, if Detective Lang so indicates in his report, he's wrong. Answer, if he tells you
Hi,
that,
Bob.
I told him that, he may have learned that from Detective Furman, but he didn't get the information from me. I never knew that. Then when Lang came in, I asked him the question about the same area. I asked Lang this question. So let's look at it together. Does that report indicate that Phillips stated that victim Brown was the ex-wife of OJ Simpson, the well-known athlete actor? Answer, yes, it does. And does it?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, it's that time. It's that time. People with earbuds.
Yeah.
People with earbuds, take note. It's that time. We have a Donald Sutherland sighting.
How dare you?
Oh, I dare. And it's going to happen now. Not many of those left. We're winding down. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Say, additionally, Phillips stated that Mr. Simpson and victim one had been embroiled in previous domestic violence situations, one of which resulted in the arrest of Mr. Simpson. Does the report say that? Yes, it does. And he goes on to talk about, Phillips told you that, didn't he? And he goes on and says, but he told you this before you went over to Rockingham. Isn't that correct? Answer, yes. And so even Phillips was then impeached. And then Phillips tried as best he could to be a team player. It seems as though they got together, and Ms. Clark tried to make a big thing out of this, but here's how he described Mr. OJ Simpson when he told him that Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson had been found dead. What do you mean she's been killed? Oh my God, Nicole is dead. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. What do you mean she's been killed? Oh my God, Nicole is dead. Now, is that a question or is that a question? What do you mean she's been killed? They want to make something, I mean, is that preposterous? And then he goes on to say, he became upset and made that statement. Then he continued to be upset, continued to talk on the phone to himself. It took me several seconds to get him to talk to me again, to have him listen to me. And he seemed very upset. And these prosecutors would tell you, oh boy, that's something unusual about that. Anything unusual about that? What do you think? He just kept repeating over and over again that Nicole had been killed. Eventually, when I got his attention again, is when I mentioned the children. You have to remember, this conversation took place very quickly. He was talking, and I was talking, and everybody was a little excited. That's what Phillips said. And so, again, what I hope that I've done here is to let you share exactly what the testimony was. Then I asked Arnell about it. She said he was very upset. He was crying. He was saying, Arnell, I don't understand. He was very upset, emotional. Have you ever, at any time in your then 25 years, heard your father sound like that? Answer, no. She says he was upset, distraught, emotional. And then she describes him on that evening after he comes back from Chicago. He was seated with my grandmother, my Aunt Shirley, Bob Kardashian was there, the family and friends. Some of his friends were coming and going. This was in the family room. Now, with regard to his demeanor and how he appeared, describe again for the jury how he appeared before he left the room to go to some other place. How did he appear to you then? He was just very upset. He was crying off and on. We were watching the news, and he kept talking to the TV saying, you know,
yes, Marsha Clark is left-handed, Vince.
In shock, upset, and disbelief. And I've read the other part for you about the police officers going in the back door, but she describes how they walk around and she opens the alarm. She's the one.
No, she has a bone.
That went in, and let the police in, and she's the one who walked in first. And then even Tom Lang. It's a personal favorite of mine, but in his instance, I think they're probably more mistakes than anything else. Human foibles, and he seems to be quite different than some of the others. Remember, he told us how he took these tennis shoes that OJ Simpson told him he was wearing. And I said, what'd you do with those tennis shoes? He said, well, I took the tennis shoes and I put them in the trunk of my car. I was going to take them home for the night because it was too late to book them. Then we looked at this video. And the tennis shoes he got, remember, he put the tennis shoes in the front seat with him. Maybe he stopped halfway up the road on the freeway and put them in the trunk. That's not what he did then.
Just
Then
Don the
he
Soulless
was part of
Ginger,
the
even
group
though I caught that
who
ridiculous
says
Texas chili is
OJ
less
was not
than
a
BS,
suspect.
I won't hold it against you this time.
Turns his head, perhaps.
Thank you so much
Maybe
for
that's
being a
his
member
partner.
for 13 months and a new member.
Notice he wasn't involved in this whole debacle.
Thank you
With
for
these
being a
Fiato
new
brothers
member of
and
the
Agent
Bent
Wax.
Halos and Broken
He wasn't
Wings.
involved. He's smarter. He wouldn't let that happen. And you know what? It's interesting because it's his case. That's his case that they're working on. You see him come running in here, trying to cover for anybody. He didn't do that, to his credit. And then we come, before we end today, to Detective Mark Furman.
Vince Clortho, for the ladies tomorrow for Doggo Cam. Yeah. Figured Legal Vices would have been watching the Melly hearing today. Guess he's not covering that anymore. Yes, I am. But they're just status hearings. They're just motion hearings. They're not. There's not high drama. I'll watch it, and if there's something to talk about later, I'll comment on it next week.
He's been unmasked for the whole world for what he is.
We're still following it,
and that's hopefully positive. His misdeeds go far beyond this case because he bespeaks a culture that's not tolerable in America. But let's talk about this case. People worry about this is not the case of Mark Furman. Well, it's not the case of Mark Furman. Mark Furman is not in custody. He's not. That's the man who they're trying to put away with witnesses like this, a corrupt police officer who is a liar and a perjurer. You know, they were talking yesterday in their argument about, well, they said, well, gee, would you just think he would commit a felony? What do you think it was when he was asked the questions by F. Lee Bailey? So well put. And we'll talk about that at the very end, about whether he'd ever used the N-word in 10 years. And he swore to tell the truth. He lied, and others knew he lied. But what I find particularly troubling is that they all knew about Mark Furman. And they weren't going to tell you. They tried to ease him by.
Oh, Marsha's looking upset.
Who testified in this case? How many were taken up to the grand jury room where they have this prep session? They ask him all these questions. Ms. Clark, and I went back and I read again her introduction of Mark Furman. How many witnesses they do that with? Well, they took him up there and they prepared him for this because you see, they knew about the Kathleen Bell letter, but she didn't fit. She didn't fit in what they wanted. They didn't want her. They'd rather malign her and believe this lying police officer. So they knew, make no mistake about it. And so, when they try to prepare him, talk to him, and get him ready, and make him seem like a choir boy, make him come in here and raise his right hand as though he's gonna tell you the truth and give you a true story here. He knew he was a liar and a racist. There's something about good versus evil. There's something about truth. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. You can always count on that. And so when Ms. Clark so gently puts him on the stand and talks to him about, tell us how you feel about testifying today. Nervous? Okay. Reluctant? All the things about this bad
Laser
lady,
eyes.
Kathleen Bell. They brought it out at the beginning. This bad Kathleen Bell saying all these mean things about you. Oh, and you don't know her even, do you? We asked you to look at her on the Larry King show, and you didn't recognize her. You don't know her. Oh, well, it's just terrible. All these bad things are happening to you, Detective Furman. Go back and you look at your notes of how the testimony was as they tried to bring him in here and pass him off. These things were all happening. The Kathleen Bell letter was in 85 and 86. Same time he went out to OJ Simpson's house in 85 that they want to talk so much about. What they're talking about is not even relevant. What we're talking about now is what happened in this case. And so, after having made all these denials and been adopted and accepted by the prosecution and put him on the stand, and you saw it, it was sickening. And then, my colleague Lee Bailey, who can't be with us today, but God bless him wherever he is, did his cross-examination of this individual.
And it was
He asked him some
brutal.
questions. Some of you probably wonder, well, gee, wonder if he's asking that. He asked this man whether or not he'd ever met Kathleen Bell. Of course, he lied about that. Never met this woman. I don't recognize her. I don't know her. Gee, I don't know anything about that. Boy, and he sounded really convincing, didn't he? He says, quote, I do not recognize this woman as anybody I have ever met. That's what he says. Then Bailey says, have you used that word, referring to the N-word, in the past 10 years? Not that I recall, no. You mean if you call someone a nigger, you have forgotten it? I'm not sure I can answer the question the way it's phrased, sir, and they go on.
Delay.
He says, Bailey then pins him down. I want you to assume that perhaps at some time since 1985 or 86, you addressed a member of the African-American race as a nigger. Is it possible that you have forgotten that act on your part? Answer, no, it is not possible. Are you therefore saying that you have not used that word in the past 10 years, Detective Furman? Answer, yes, that is what I'm saying. Question, and you say under oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Furman? That's what I'm saying, sir. So that anyone who comes to this court and quotes you.
This is it right here. This sentence, this question by F. Lee Bailey that he's reading now and Mark Furman's answer is what sunk the case. Let's go back and read this.
Question.
Listen to this.
And you say under oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Furman? That's what I'm saying.
This question right here.
So that anyone who comes to this court and quotes you as using that word in dealing with African Americans would be a liar. Would they not, Detective Furman? Yes, they would.
Yes, they would, by definition, unequivocally be a liar if anybody came and said that he used that word in the last 10 years. So then F. Lee Bailey later calls two witnesses who have recordings of him using the word 41 times in just the space of a couple of weeks. So yeah, that I think is what sunk the case definitively right there. No comments, Chandler?
I mean, how dare you disparage my boys in blue? I don't know what to say. They're LAPD are famously corrupt, always have been, and always will be. Just a fact.
There you go. You heard it here first from Chandler. And for some reason, I cannot bring up the why can't I bring up the chats now? That's weird. All right, but Unhung Hero dropped us a $2 super chat saying Indiana Steve Gosney is trying his hardest. I don't know what that means. Thanks, Unhung Hero. Don't know what it means, but thanks.
All of them? Correct? All of them. That's what he told you under oath in this case. Did he lie? Did he lie? Did he lie under oath? Did this key prosecution witness lie under oath? And I'm going to end.
Oh, that's funny. You know why that Unhung Hero thing didn't make any sense? Because he didn't say it here. He said it over on Potentially Criminal Sean's stream, which I brought up to feed us into after this is over. No, Joe Choi Chat isn't being weird today. I was just looking at a different stream than my own. I set us up to funnel over into Potentially Criminal Sean, his stream here. But hey, I was reading Potentially Criminal Sean's stream, not our own, because I'm dumb like that. All right. Mystery solved. That's why I can't find it.
In this part and resume with him tomorrow morning. Did he lie? And when they try to tell you he's not important, let's remember this man. This is the man who was off this case shortly after 2 o'clock in the morning, right after he got on it. This is the man who didn't want to be off this case. This is the man, when they're ringing the doorbell at Ashford, who goes for a walk, and he describes how he's strolling. Let me quote him for you. Here's what he says. I was just strolling along, looking at the house. Maybe I could see some movement inside. I was just walking while the other three detectives were down there. And that's when he walks down, and he's the one who says the Bronco was parked askew, and he sees some spot on the door. He makes all of the discoveries. It's got to be the big man, because he's had it in for OJ because of his views since '85. This is the man. He's the guy who climbs over the fence. He's the guy who goes in and talks to Kato Kalin while the other detectives are talking to the family. He's the guy who's shining a light in Kato Kalin's eyes. He's the guy looking at shoes and looking for suspects. He's the guy who's doing these things. He's the guy who says, I don't tell anybody about the thumps on the wall. He's the guy who's off this case, who's supposedly there to help this man, our client, OJ Simpson, who then goes out all by himself. All by himself. Now, if he's worried about bodies or suspects or whatever, doesn't even take out his gun. He goes around the side of the house, and lo and behold, he claims he finds this glove. And he says the glove is still moist and sticky. Now, under their theory, at 10:45, that glove is dropped. How many hours is that? It's now after 6 o'clock. So what is that, 7.5 hours? It's a testimony about drying time around here. There's no dew point that night. Why would it be moist and sticky? Unless he brought it over there and planted it there to try to make this case. And there is a Caucasian hair on that glove. This man cannot be trusted. He is central to the prosecution. And for them to say he's not important is untrue, and you will not fall for it. Because as guardians of justice here, we can't let it happen. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Right. Scott, could you have it taken down, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, and we will see you all next week. That is the end of the day there for that trial. That's it. We got through another one. Phew. We're on our way to wrapping this up.
We're getting closer.
We are. Now, Chandler, you got some big things coming up here in a bit. Tell us about them.
Well, why are we all the way over here on the side of the screen like this?
Because I can only do one thing at a time.
Oh, I mean, I don't mind
rid of
being over here.
I'm getting rid of the banner first.
Well, while you do that, I will let everybody know what I have coming up. Tomorrow, I very well might be on Laid Back News. We only get invitations right before, but that would be my plan. And right after that, I'm going to be doing a stream on my own channel on Remy Legal. That's right. I'm doing Wicked Women. I'm doing an episode with Danny on Direct. We are going to be talking about malevolent mothers. We're going to be talking about Lori Vallow and Ruby Frankie, 2 cases that she's covered. I'm very much looking forward to that. And we're going to be talking about the phenomenon of how harmful mothers can be. And hint, hint, more than fathers. So stick around for that. And then after that, I'm going to be on Legal Vice's channel for Lady Bits. It's going to be fantastic. Lots of ladies, lots of eye candy.
Lots of bits.
Jasmine Jafar will be fully clothed. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So, you know, I mean, you know, she's going to be covering the stuff that Twitter doesn't make her cover.
Twitter doesn't make you cover anything. You clearly have not seen her Twitter account.
And I will be not the most, you know, well, nobody really knows this.
That's all we demand is tight shirts and cake. That's all the ladies got to bring. Just tight shirts and cake.
Much bigger than mine, but we'll have a great time. We're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to be like a sleepover. It'll be like, you know, so much estrogen, mostly based on estrogen, I think. I don't remember all who's coming, but I think I like everybody that you invited. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's what's coming up for me. So Moms Who Are Terrible, and then Sexy Lady Party. Good day.
Well, let's tell you who's going to be there. That's the very next thing. I like this. I like this streaming on Friday night thing rather than Friday morning, because I'm so happy that I get to do things on Friday night now for the first time in 2 years. But we've got Friday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time, midnight UK time. It'll be 1 p.m. Canberra, Australia time. We've got Legal Vice's Lady Bits, the January 2024 Fuck It Friday Ladies Night Boozy Griftathon, the first time we have ever had an all-women's panel. That's going to be here. Bring your grifty money. Bring all the money. Just throw it at me in super chats and gifted memberships. Just empty your bank accounts and lay it at my feet while I'll just be like Demi Moore in Indecent Proposal and just lay it on my bed and roll around in it. just because that's what F Friday Griftathon is all about. Just jokes. It's all in good fun. We do it. We get all the grifting out on one day. So bring all your money in. Let's have a super duper drunken griftathon. Every $100 gets a shot. The straight up $100 super chats, we're going to get a 1792 bourbon, a very high proof bourbon. And the aggregate $100 shots will probably be doing Monkey Shoulder, which is a lower shelf whiskey, a blended scotch. So that's what we're going to be doing for drinks. And we're just going to have fun. And who we have on the panel so far, we have Flux. Flux will be here, our Minecraft specialist. Lauren De Laguna, influencer. Steph the Alter Nerd, who is just Steph the Alter Nerd in her royal ways. Chandler Remington, who we know all about because she's right here with us. The influencer's influencer and the source of our 13-year-old Ari Jacob introduction to OJ Simpson. Ari Jacob will be here. Christina Radix Verum, the one who's keeping the government in check. She'll be here. Talk with Sally, my homegirl from Utah, will be here. Jess Waifu Kron, who she's done her Waifu Kron pass. She's probably going to be firing up the grill and start doing more streams in the future. We hung out with her in Houston. Fantastic lady, fun as hell. The lead attorney's sidekick, AV to the 7th power, is going to be here. Flux, oh my God, we're all going to sync up. No.
That's hilarious. Oh, I love you, Flux.
You know I'm going to make that joke now. Lady Law 5791, who is low-key one of the funniest people you'll ever talk to. Danny on Direct will be here. Comedian Lila Hart will be here. And top 0.1% or 0.01% of the top OnlyFans content creators, Jasmine Jafar, will be here. And there may be a Nina Infinity sighting. There may be an Anna the Star Wars girl, that Star Wars girl sighting. And there might be a Natalie Wisco sighting. Those are the definite maybes. So don't miss this, starting 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday night. The Legal Vices Lady Bits, January 24th, Fuck It Friday, Ladies Night, Boozy Griftathon. There we go. That's it. Let's go see what potentially criminal Sean is covering, shall we? Let's head on over there right now. We'll see you all Friday evening with all of your shekels, dollars, dineros, IUDs, sexy kronas, and whatever else you got there. That's what we're going to be looking at. Until then, hey, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, however good it feels, whoever you're doing it with, and however many times you plan on doing it, just make sure you always enjoy your legal vices.